The history of mankind is not only a record of heroic conquests, magnificent palaces, and ingenious inventions. Beneath the glossy surface of known facts and tangible ruins, there is an abyss of silent riddles that whisper to us through the millennia, reminding us with a cold touch of grandiose civilizations that have disappeared into the unknown. Imagine cities that once shone with gold and wisdom, but today have turned into stones covered with moss or sunk to the bottom of the ocean, as if they did not exist at all. Think of the knowledge that has been lost, the languages that have been silenced forever, the technologies that have sunk into oblivion, leaving behind only incomprehensible artifacts that challenge our understanding of the past. These mysteries are not just gaps in the annals. They are gaping holes in the collective memory of humanity, beckoning us with their unknown nature. We stand on the threshold of great discoveries surrounded by the ghosts of bygone eras. Each unsolved mystery is a silent rebuke to our modernity, a challenge to our intellect, an invitation to look beyond the veil of everyday life and dare to imagine the world as it was when gods walked among men and magic intertwined with everyday life. Here, in these silent testimonies of the past, we will find the echoes of catastrophes and miracles, the whispers of prophecies, and the sounds of great things that have been erased from the face of the earth or swallowed up by the waters of time. Get ready to dive into the heart of ancient mysteries, where archaeology meets mysticism and reality intertwines with myth. We will see lost cities whose stones still echo life and death, unexplained artifacts like aliens from the future, and civilizations that have disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only silent questions. These 30 great mysteries are the keys to understanding that history is not as simple as it seems, and that beneath the thin layer of the known lies an infinite depth of the unknown, calling us to its eternal oblivion. Shadows of the vanished, forgotten metropolises that have sunk into summer. Our journey begins with ghost towns, once majestic, but now swallowed up by desert sands, jungle greenery, or the depths of the sea. Their stones, if they can be found at all, silently preserve the memory of their former greatness. But their disappearance is shrouded in such a dense veil of mystery that they seem to be the fruit of a dream and not the work of human hands. Mohenjodaro, which means Hill of the Dead in Sindhi, is a majestic city lost in modern-day Pakistan, one of the gems of the ancient Harappan civilization that flourished in the Indus River Valley between 2500 and 1900 BC. It was one of the largest and most developed cities of its time, comparable in scale to the ancient metropolises of Egypt and Mesopotamia, but in many ways superior in terms of urban planning and hygiene. Mohenjo-Daro impresses with its straight streets arranged according to a strict grid plan, a well-thought-out drainage and sewerage system, which was unprecedented for that time and testified to an incredibly high level of engineering and social structure. Each house had its own bathroom and toilet, connected to a common sewer system. The city had extensive granaries, grandiose public baths such as the Great Bath, designed for ritual ablutions, and numerous wells that provided residents with clean water. The lack of obvious palaces, monumental temples, or fortifications typical of other ancient cities suggests a peaceful, egalitarian society where perhaps there was no strong social stratification or the need for constant defense. Ceramics, bronzes, seals with animal images, and unencrypted inscriptions, and fine jewelry all point to a highly developed culture, deep knowledge, and peaceful coexistence that makes Mohenjo-Daro a unique phenomenon in the history of mankind. It was the center of trade, crafts, and spiritual life, the throbbing heart of a great civilization that stretched across vast territories. However, around 1900 BC, this vast and seemingly stable civilization, including the Mohenjo-Daro, suddenly declined and eventually disappeared. The city was abandoned, trade routes were interrupted, and standardized artifacts were no longer produced. It wasn't the abrupt destruction of an invasion or disaster, but rather a slow but inexplicable decline, as if millions of people had simply left their homes and disappeared into history, leaving only silent ruins behind. Only a few skeletons were found, which does not allow us to talk about mass death as a result of war or epidemic. There were no signs of major fires or damage indicating an invasion. the city seemed to freeze and then slowly sink into oblivion, its complex systems shut down and its streets deserted. It is this complete and inexplicable disappearance of one of the most extensive ancient civilizations without clear reasons that remains one of the greatest mysteries of archaeology, forcing historians and scientists to puzzle over what could have happened to this thriving metropolis, which seemed to disappear from the annals of history. Traditional scientific hypotheses focus on environmental and climate change. One of the leading theories is a prolonged drought caused by changing monsoon rains, which were vital for irrigation of fields and maintaining agriculture in the region. Reduced rainfall could lead to mass starvation, forcing residents to leave cities in search of more fertile land. Another important theory is a change in the course of the Indus River or its tributaries, which could have left Mohenjodaro and other cities without water, making them uninhabitable. The river that gave life could also take it away by changing its course. There may also have been soil degradation due to intensive farming, which led to resource depletion. Some scientists suggest that massive flood, caused by the Indus floods, may have destroyed infrastructure and forced the population to migrate. Or it was a series of small but cumulative events that gradually led to environmental degradation and mass displacement of the population. However, all of these factors may have contributed to the decline, but none of them explains the complete and relatively rapid disappearance of an entire civilization that seemed perfectly adapted to its environment and showed amazing resilience. Along with rational explanations, there are also more unconventional, mystical versions. Some researchers and supporters of paleocontact suggest that the death of Mohenjo-Daro could have been caused by a catastrophe of cosmic origin, for example, a meteorite fall or even a nuclear explosion. This theory is based on the discovery of strange, glassy patches of land and high levels of radiation in some parts of the city, which may indicate exposure to extremely high temperatures typical of nuclear reactions. Although most scientists reject this, explaining the phenomena by burning bricks in a naturally radioactive background, the idea of an ancient atomic war, mentioned in some Hindu texts, excites the imagination. Other versions speak of a massive epidemic of an unknown disease that could have destroyed most of the population without leaving a trace, or of a sudden climate change caused not by terrestrial, but by cosmic factors. There are also esoteric suggestions that the inhabitants of Mohenjo-Daro, being a peaceful and spiritually advanced civilization, moved to another dimension or simply left the physical plane, reaching a new level of consciousness, leaving their cities as silent monuments. Although there are no direct myths about the demise of the Mohenjo-Daro and the entire Harappan civilization, possibly due to the loss of their language and oral traditions, Indian Vedas written later mention great catastrophes and changes in riverbeds, which may have been echoes of the events that led to the decline of Harappa. There is also folklore about water spirits who could either support or destroy ancient cities, hinting at a powerful force of nature that could play a fatal role in their fate. Some modern theories link the decline of Harappa to the arrival of Aryan tribes that may have brought new technology or militancy, although archaeological evidence does not support large-scale invasion or mass violence. Local lore also often speaks of the wrath of the gods, or a change in the order of things, as the cause of the disappearance of great ancient settlements, pointing to some higher intervention in the fate of people that erased them from the world. What really caused the disappearance of Mohenjo-Daro and the entire Harappan civilization? Why didn't its inhabitants leave any direct evidence of their deaths that would be understandable to posterity? What secrets might have been encoded in their hitherto unencrypted script, which may hold the keys to their disappearance? And can we learn from this great but forgotten civilization that has so abruptly sunk into the abyss of history, leaving only silent ruins to whisper its unsolved mystery, calling us to its deserted streets? When stones speak riddles of ancient structures. Stone giants built by the hands of the ancients still stand, defying time and logic. They whisper about incredible technologies, lost knowledge, and the inexplicable purposes for which they were created. These megalithic structures, temples, and observatories are silent testimonies of forgotten geniuses whose secrets were swallowed up by the abyss of centuries. Stonehenge, located on the Salisbury Plain in England, is one of the most recognizable and mysterious megalithic structures in the world. Its massive stones, some of which reach 30 tons, were erected between 3000 and 2000 BC. That is, long before the appearance of the wheel and complex construction mechanisms in Britain. This monument consists of two types of stones: smaller blue stones, weighing up to 4 tons, brought from the Preseli Hills in Wales, a distance of about 250 kilometers, and massive sandstone sarcens, weighing up to 50 tons, brought from the Marlborough Downs, a distance of about 30 kilometers. The main structure of Stonehenge consists of an inner circle of blue stones, an outer circle of sarcens with horizontal lintels, triliths, and freestanding stones that form a complex astronomical observatory. Its precise alignment with the summer solstice and winter solstice points to the ancient builders' deep knowledge of astronomy and their connection to natural cycles. Stonehenge wasn't just a pile of rocks. It was a carefully planned and designed complex that probably served as a place for religious ceremonies, astronomical observations, burial sites, and perhaps even a place of healing. It was the center of the spiritual and social life of ancient societies, embodying their cosmological ideas in connection with the world of gods and ancestors. The main secret of Stonehenge is the methods of its construction and transportation of stones. How could the ancient people, without wheels, draft animals in sufficient numbers and complex lifting mechanisms, move such huge stones for tens or even hundreds of kilometers, and then raise them to a vertical position and install horizontal lintels at a height of several meters? The absence of any written evidence or images of this process leaves a huge field for speculation. No less mysterious is the true purpose of Stonehenge. Although its astronomical function is obvious, was it exclusively an observatory? Was it a place of worship for unknown gods, a place of sacrifice, burial sites, or a healing center? The lack of clear archaeological or historical data about its full purpose makes its functionality as mysterious as its construction methods. Traditional ones, scientific hypotheses, trying to explain the construction of Stonehenge are based on collective work and primitive technologies. It is assumed that the stones could have been moved by means of wooden sleds or skating rinks, which were dragged along the ground using thousands of people. A system of ramps, levers, and ropes could be used to lift vertical stones, and earthen mounds or wooden scaffolding could be used to install horizontal lintels. Experiments conducted by modern researchers using these methods have shown that this is theoretically possible, but requires a lot of effort, time, and organization. The transport of blue stones from Wales may have been carried out by water, using rafts or primitive vessels, and then by land using the same methods. These theories emphasize the ingenuity and perseverance of the ancient builders, but do not fully answer the question of how it was done with such precision and on such a scale, or why there are no obvious traces of these grandiose construction works. Along with rational explanations, there are also more unconventional, mystical versions. Some speculate that the Stonehenge builders had lost knowledge or technology that allowed them to use some form of levitation or anti-gravity. This idea is often fueled by myths about ancient gods or alien civilizations that could help build such megalithic structures. There are theories that Stonehenge was built using acoustic effects or vibrations that may have made it easier for the stones to move. Some esotericists believe that it was a portal or energy center capable of concentrating the invisible forces of the earth that helped in its creation. Others argue that Stonehenge is a calendar of ancient astrologers who had surprisingly accurate knowledge of the movement of celestial bodies, which indicates an advanced civilization whose knowledge was lost. In Celtic and British folklore, Stonehenge is shrouded in many legends and myths. The most famous legend relates its creation to the wizard Merlin, who used magic to transfer stones from Ireland. This legend emphasizes the supernatural nature of construction, unthinkable for ordinary mortals. Other legends speak of giants who built Stonehenge, or of ancient druids who used it for their rituals and communication with the gods. Local legends also connect Stonehenge with the forces of the earth, nature spirits, and energy lines, ley lines, that supposedly intersect at this place, giving it a special mystical power. Even today, many people believe that Stonehenge has healing properties or is a place of power for meditation and spiritual unity, which only enhances its aura of mystery and makes it a living testimony to a mystical past. How were the ancient people able to move and install these colossal stones without visible technology? What was the true purpose of Stonehenge, and what role did it play in the lives of those who built it? What secrets could be encoded in its stone circles and astronomical alignments? And can Weaver fully unravel the mystery of this majestic megalithic structure, which stands silently on the plain, keeping its age-old secrets, calling us to touch its cold stone and feel the breath of the ancient gods? When time is distorted, unexplained, anachronisms, and artifacts. Among the ruins of ancient civilizations, objects are sometimes found that do not seem to fit into their era, demonstrating knowledge and technology that should have appeared much later. These anachronisms challenge our understanding of historical development and raise questions about lost civilizations or even unearthly influences, as if the shadows of great inventors of the past whisper to us about forgotten wonders. The Antikythera mechanism is one of the most amazing and complex ancient artifacts discovered in 1901 by Greek divers in the wreckage of an ancient Roman ship that sank off the island of Antikythera in about 60 BC. This device, found among bronze statues and ceramics, at first glance looked like a piece of corroded bronze. However, after careful cleaning and X-ray analysis, it turned out to be an incredibly complex mechanical calculator, consisting of more than 30 bronze gears, dials, and hands. Created around 150 to 100 BC, this mechanism was able to track the movements of the sun, moon, and planets, known at that time with amazing accuracy, predict solar and lunar eclipses, moon phases, as well as calculate the dates of the Olympic Games and other sporting events. It was a kind of ancient analog computer that was more than 1,000 years ahead of its time. Devices of comparable complexity did not appear in Europe until the 14th century, and high-precision gears did not appear until the 17th century. The mechanism is a clear indication of the incredible level of astronomical knowledge and engineering skills of the ancient Greeks, which was long lost after the fall of ancient civilizations. Its exquisite design, which demonstrates a deep understanding of celestial mechanics, makes it one of the most important archaeological discoveries, radically changing our understanding of the technological capabilities of the ancient world. The main mystery of Antikythera, the secret lies in its incredible complexity and lack of analogs in the ancient world. Where did such knowledge and technologies come from? Who was its creator? And why did such devices not become widespread or are not mentioned in other sources of that time? The mechanism seemingly came out of nowhere, with no obvious antecedents or a developed industry that could produce such complex parts. This is not an isolated accidental invention, but the product of deep knowledge in mathematics, astronomy, and mechanics, which, as it was believed, were achieved only much later. The disappearance of such advanced technology for a whole millennium before the advent of European clocks and astronomical instruments raises questions about the lost stages of the development of science and technology that may have existed in ancient times but were forgotten. Traditional scientific hypotheses, while trying to explain the origin of the Antikythera mechanism, suggest that it was the result of the highest point of development of Greek science and engineering, perhaps created by such outstanding minds as Archimedes or Hipparchus, whose work in mathematics and astronomy could serve as a theoretical basis. Perhaps there were other similar mechanisms that simply did not reach us, having died as a result of wars, natural disasters, or simply did not stand the test of time. The Roman Empire, which inherited Greek culture, may not have paid such attention to complex science and mechanics, focusing on engineering and practical solutions, which led to a gradual oblivion of this knowledge. The collapse of the ancient world and the subsequent Middle Ages, with their general decline in science and technology, may have led to the loss of these unique skills and technologies. Thus, the mechanism could be the highest achievement of a lost trend in ancient Greek science, which simply was not widely accepted or appreciated at the time. Despite rational explanations, the complexity of the Antikythera mechanism has also given rise to more unconventional, even fantastic theories. Some proponents of paleocontact suggest that it may have been created with the help of extraterrestrial technologies or be the result of knowledge gained from alien civilizations that contacted the ancient Greeks. Other esoteric versions suggest that the mechanism may have been part of Atlantean technology or lost knowledge passed down from older, highly developed civilizations that existed before the catastrophe that destroyed them. There are suggestions that the mechanism not only tracks celestial bodies, but could also be associated with unknown energy fields, or used to predict not only astronomical, but also other events having some mystical influence on reality. These hypotheses, while lacking scientific evidence, highlight the striking anachronism of this device and its ability to excite the imagination, forcing us to rethink the technological capabilities of the ancients. Direct myths or legends directly related to Antikythera. However, it does not exist since it was found relatively recently and its true purpose became clear only in the 6th century. However, in ancient Greek mythology and philosophy, there are references to the creation of Hephaestus, the god of blacksmithing and inventions, who could create living mechanisms and automated devices. Perhaps the Antikythera mechanism would have been perceived by the ancient Greeks as a creation close to his divine skill. Philosophers such as Plato spoke of a cosmic order and harmony of the celestial spheres, which is quite consistent with the purpose of the mechanism. In folklore and modern mystical teachings, this artifact often becomes a symbol of the lost golden ages, when humanity had deeper knowledge and technologies that were lost as a result of cataclysms or oblivion, which only increases its mystery and uniqueness. Who really created the Antikythera mechanism, and why was its technology lost for a millennium? Were there other similar devices still waiting to be discovered at the bottom of the seas or in buried ruins? What other secrets of ancient science and engineering can be hidden in the depths of history that can change our understanding of the development of civilizations? And what could this mechanism really tell us about the world of the ancients, if we could fully decipher all its secrets, which it kept in its corroded gears under the seawater? Voices of antiquity, unencrypted scripts, and lost languages. Language is not just a means of communication. It is the key to the culture, history, and thinking of ancient peoples. When writing remains unencrypted and language dies, entire civilizations fall silent, their whispers lost in the centuries, leaving us with silent signs that could tell us about the innermost secrets of the past. These unreadable writings are a kind of cry from the past, an encrypted code waiting for its cracker to reveal long-forgotten knowledge and worldviews. The Indus Valley script, also known as the Harappan script, is one of the greatest linguistic mysteries in human history. It was used by the ancient Harappan civilization, which flourished in the Indus River Valley, in what is now Pakistan and northwestern India, from about 2500 to 1900 BC, simultaneously with the great civilizations of Mesopotamia and Egypt. This script consists of short sequences of characters, mostly found on stone seals, but also on ceramics, copper tablets, and other artifacts, totaling about 4,000 inscriptions. The symbols, which are estimated to be about 600 in number, are pictographic in nature, i.e., they represent stylized images of objects, animals, and possibly people. This indicates that the writing was probably logographic. Each character denotes a word or morpheme, or syllabic rather than alphabetic. The longest labels contain no more than 20 characters, while the average length is only 5 characters. This suggests that writing may have been used for short notes, identification of goods, ritual inscriptions, or names, rather than for maintaining extensive literature or historical chronicles. The lack of the Rosetta Stone, a bilingual text that could serve as a key to decipherment, makes this task extremely difficult. Moreover, the language itself spoken by the Harappans remains unknown, although many researchers suggest its connection with the Dravidian languages of southern India. This script is the only thing left of an advanced but mysteriously vanished civilization, and deciphering it could reveal invaluable knowledge about their culture, religion, social structure, and possibly the causes of their decline. The main secret of the Harappan script is that it is completely unencrypted. Despite decades of hard work by linguists and cryptographers around the world, there is still no generally accepted decryption, which is a huge obstacle to understanding the ancient Indian civilization. We don't know what language the Harappans spoke Harapsi, who their rulers were, what they believed in, or what led to their disappearance. These mysterious signs remain silent, hiding thousands of years of history and culture. The lack of long texts that can provide context for interpretation also makes the decoding process more difficult. We can only guess at the meaning of individual symbols based on their appearance, but we have not yet been able to put them together in a coherent language. This silence emanating from a once thriving civilization is one of the most tantalizing mysteries for archaeologists and historians. Traditional scientific hypotheses about decoding focus on comparative analysis with other known ancient scripts, such as Sumerian or Egyptian hieroglyphics, in the hope of finding parallels in symbolism or grammatical structures. Many researchers try to use statistical methods and computer analysis to identify patterns in the arrangement of symbols, the frequency of their use, and possible syntactic relationships. A hypothesis about the Dravidian origin of the language of the Indian civilization is being actively developed, since Dravidian languages are indigenous to southern India, and this could explain some of the features of symbolism. However, the lack of bilingualism, a text written in two well-known languages like the Rosetta Stone, is a huge obstacle. Each new decryption theory faces the problem of a lack of supporting data, and any decryption remains only a hypothesis until a convincing proof is found that is recognized by the world scientific community. There are also more unconventional, even fantastic theories about the Harappan script. Some suggest that it may be related to Proto-Sumerian or even Proto-Indo-European, which could indicate broader migrations and connections between ancient civilizations. Other researchers believe that the Indus script may not have been entirely a language as we understand it, but rather a system of symbols and pictograms used for religious or administrative purposes that had no direct phonetic equivalent. There are also versions that it could be a secret, esoteric script, accessible only to selected priests or rulers, and that its meaning was deliberately hidden from the uninitiated. The most daring hypotheses connect the Harappan script with messages from extraterrestrial civilizations, pointing to unusual forms of some symbols that, in their opinion, do not resemble terrestrial images. These theories, of course, remain at the level of speculation, but they emphasize the deep mystery and uniqueness of this undeciphered script. In modern Indian folklore and folk beliefs, although there are no direct legends about the Indus script, there are still legends about ancient sages and rishis who possess secret knowledge written in languages that are now forgotten. There are stories of divine writing, or the writing of the gods, which is the source of all knowledge and wisdom, and which can only be understood by a select few. These myths reflect a common reverence for ancient knowledge and the belief that the keys to understanding the past are hidden in some sacred or secret texts. For many Indians, the Harappan civilization, with its cryptic writing, is part of their deep history, a testament to ancient greatness and a source of national pride, even if its language remains mute for now, calling on future generations to uncover its cryptic messages and reclaim the voice of a vanished civilization. What is really hidden behind the Harappan symbols writing skills? What knowledge and stories are encoded in these silent signs on ancient seals? Will we ever be able to read the messages left by one of the greatest but vanished civilizations? And what will this writing, if deciphered, tell us about the reasons for its sudden disappearance, which is still one of the most painful riddles waiting to be solved in the corridors of time? Secret objects and unusual inventions, echoes of forgotten technologies. Sometimes archaeologists discover objects that seem completely out of place in their own era, objects that show amazing technological or scientific knowledge that, according to our ideas, should have appeared much later. These anachronisms call into question the linear development of civilizations and make you think about the existence of lost inventions that were ahead of their time, or even about contacts with extraterrestrial cultures. These objects, like aliens from the future, whisper to us about great but forgotten breakthroughs and secret knowledge that is sunk into oblivion. The Baghdad Battery, also known as the Parthian Battery, is one of the most mysterious and controversial artifacts discovered in the 1930s in Koyut Rabwa, a village near Baghdad, Iraq. This artifact dates from about 250 BC, 250 AD. That is, it belongs to the period of the rule of the Parthians or Sassanids. It consists of an earthen pitcher about 13 cm high, inside which is a copper cylinder held by an asphalt plug, and inside the copper cylinder is an iron rod. If the jug were filled with an electrolyte such as vinegar, lemon juice, or grape juice, this design could generate a small electric current of about 0.8 to 2 volts. Although its power would be small, it could be sufficient for electroplating, that is, coating objects with a thin layer of precious metals such as gold or silver, or for electrical stimulation for medical purposes, or even for ritual and cult practices, creating magical effects. This discovery challenges traditional ideas about the development of electricity, which is believed to have been discovered only in the 16th century by Alessandro Volta. The Baghdad battery suggests that ancient civilizations may have possessed knowledge about electricity that was long lost, making this artifact a veritable technological anachronism that could turn the pages of history textbooks. The main secret of the Baghdad battery is its purpose and the absence of other similar devices. If it really was a battery, then what was it used for? And why are there no other, more developed or numerous examples of such technology found? The lack of written evidence or drawings describing the use of electricity in ancient Mesopotamia or Persia is a major obstacle to a full understanding of its role. It is not known whether this was an isolated experiment, part of a broader but lost technology, or whether its true purpose was entirely different. The question is also how this knowledge was obtained and why it was not passed on to subsequent generations, which led to their oblivion for thousands of years. Traditional scientific hypotheses about the Baghdad battery mostly challenge its function as a source of electricity. Many archaeologists and historians believe that the artifact was most likely a container for storing scrolls or other fragile objects, and the copper cylinder and iron rod were simply part of the structure or were used for some other non-electrical purposes, for example, as part of a ritual object or amulet. The lack of obvious wires, contacts, or other components that could confirm its electrical function is a strong argument against this theory. It is also pointed out that although it could produce electricity, there is no direct evidence that ancient people were aware of this effect or purposefully used it. Perhaps it was just a random configuration of materials that could theoretically generate current, but was not designed to do so. Thus, for many scientists, the Baghdad battery is more a curious curiosity than proof of the existence of ancient electrical technologies. However, proponents of the theory of ancient electricity put forward many counter-arguments and alternative hypotheses. They point out that the ancient texts and myths of the East sometimes mention miraculous lights or heavenly lightning that may have resulted from the use of electricity for ritual or practical purposes. Some speculate that the Baghdad battery may have been used for electroplating jewelry, which would explain the presence of thin layers of gold on some ancient artifacts that would seem impossible to apply without electricity. Perhaps it was also used in medicine for electrical stimulation or pain relief, which could also be part of the miracle itinerary methods of ancient healers. The boldest theories link the Baghdad battery to extraterrestrial technology or knowledge passed on to ancient people by gods or aliens, indicating that such advanced technology could not have been invented without external influence in that era. These theories, of course, remain at the level of speculation, but they highlight how much the Baghdad battery challenges our traditional ideas about the ancient world. Mesopotamian folklore and Babylonian myths, although there is no direct mention of electricity, have stories of great craftsmen and inventor gods, such as Enki, the Sumerian god of wisdom and crafts, who could create amazing, living mechanisms and objects with mysterious powers. These myths could be echoes of real but lost technologies. In modern esoteric teachings, the Baghdad battery is often seen as proof of the existence of lost knowledge, or hidden sciences, that were known to ancient civilizations, but then intentionally or accidentally forgotten. It has become a symbol of the fact that the ancient world was much more advanced than we think, and that many of the secrets of its technologies are still waiting to be discovered. What was the Baghdad battery actually used for? Was it a source of electricity, or was its purpose completely different? What other technological secrets might have been hidden in the depths of ancient civilizations that we still can't understand? And will future research shed light on this mystery, which continues to spark controversy and questions, forcing us to rethink the history of science and technology, going back to the origins of electricity in the distant past? The great oblivions civilizations that disappeared without a trace. The most poignant mysteries of history are those that concern entire civilizations that at the height of their greatness suddenly disappeared, leaving behind only ruins and questions. These disappearances were not always the result of wars or obvious catastrophes. Sometimes they were so silent and complete that they seemed to be an act of total oblivion, as if someone had erased them from the annals of time. Civilizatia, the Olmec civilization, often called the mother of cultures of Mesoamerica, is one of the oldest and most mysterious civilizations in the New World. It flourished on the southern coast of the Gulf of Mexico, present-day states of Veracruz and Tabasco, from about 1500 to 400 BC. The Olmecs are known for their incredible achievements, which formed the basis for the subsequent great cultures of Mesoamerica, such as the Maya and Aztecs. They developed a complex religious system with a pantheon of gods, including the jaguar god and the rain god. They are credited with inventing one of the first forms of writing in the Americas, Epiomec script, creating the concept of zero, developing a complex calendar that was later adapted by the Maya, and inventing the Mesoamerican ballgame, which had ritual significance. However, the most impressive and mysterious Olmec heritage is their colossal stone heads. These monolithic sculptures, carved from basalt boulders, reach up to 3 meters in height and weigh up to 40 tons. They depict massive, individualized faces with distinctive full lips, wide noses, and flat features, often wearing helmets or headdresses. These basalt boulders were quarried in the Sierra de los Tuxtla, tens of kilometers away from their installation sites, and transported without the use of a wheel or draft animals. 17 such heads were found, mainly in 3 major centers: San Lorenzo, La Venta, and Tres Zapotes. These heads probably represented rulers or chieftains, and their creation required incredible engineering skills, complex organization of labor, and deep knowledge of sculpture. The main mystery surrounding the Olmec civilization, its mysterious disappearance around 400 BC. Their great cities were abandoned, the production of unique artifacts ceased, and cultural influence waned. It wasn't an abrupt collapse, but rather a slow but inexplicable decline, leaving behind only silent ruins and colossal heads that now stare into the void. The reasons for this decline and subsequent oblivion remain the subject of heated debate among archaeologists and historians. There were no obvious signs of large-scale wars, epidemics, or catastrophic natural disasters that could explain such a complete decline of such an advanced civilization. Traditional scientific hypotheses about the causes of Olmec decline, they focus on environmental factors and internal social changes. One of the leading theories is climate change and agricultural land depletion. The Olmecs lived in a region with high humidity and frequent flooding, and perhaps intensive farming led to soil degradation or frequent crop failures. Changes in riverbeds or siltation of coastal areas could also affect their agricultural-based economy. Another hypothesis is related to internal conflicts or social unrest. The growth of cities and the complexity of the social structure could lead to resource or power struggles between elites, which weakened centralized governance. There may have been growing external threats from neighboring tribes that gradually displaced or assimilated the Olmecs, although there is no direct evidence of incursions. The version of overpopulation that created an unbearable burden on the environment and resources is also considered. These factors may have led to a gradual exodus of populations from major centers, degradation of infrastructure, and eventual absorption of Olmec culture by other, younger civilizations, such as the Maya, who inherited many of their achievements, but under a different name. Along with rational explanations, there are also more unconventional, mystical versions of the Olmec disappearance. Some theories attribute their decline to sudden changes in religious beliefs or cultural practices, which may have led to the abandonment of old centers and population migration. It is possible that the Olmecs encountered an unknown disease or epidemic that wiped out most of the population, leaving no obvious archaeological traces. The wildest hypotheses suggest that the Olmecs could be associated with extraterrestrial civilizations that, for some reason, left Earth, taking with them their wards or losing contact with them, which led to their decline. Some proponents of this theory point to the Negro features of the faces on the colossal heads, suggesting that the Olmecs were not an autochthonous population of Mesoamerica, but came from Africa or other continents, having lost knowledge and technology, which then disappeared with them. In Mesoamerican folklore, especially among the descendants of the Mayans and Aztecs, there are legends about ancient peoples who lived before them and had incredible knowledge and powers. These first men, sometimes described as giants or creatures with unusual features, may have been echoes of the Olmec people and their monumental creations. Legends speak of the jaguar peoples who were associated with the forces of nature and the earth, and how they disappeared, disappearing into the underworld or disappearing into the jungle, leaving behind only their stone statues. These myths reflect a deep respect for the ancient builders and an attempt to explain their disappearance through supernatural forces or a change in the world order, which gives the Olmec mystery a mystical connotation and makes you wonder about the deeper, esoteric reasons for their sudden oblivion. What really caused the disappearance of the Olmec civilization, which left behind mysterious heads looking into the void? Why did their advanced knowledge and culture so suddenly fade away, giving way to other civilizations? What secrets are buried under the jungles of Mexico that could shed light on their origins and demise? And will these silent stone giants ever be able to tell us their full story, revealing the mystery of one of the most ancient and influential, but tragically vanished civilizations of the New World, whose whispers only occasionally reach us through the thickness of thousands of years? Heavenly riddles, unfathomable objects and phenomena in ancient legends. The sky has always been a source of inspiration, awe, and fear for ancient people. They saw gods, prophecies, and signs of fate in the starry sky. But sometimes phenomena appeared above the earth that did not fit into their cosmological ideas. Strange objects, inexplicable glows, or celestial chariots, descriptions of which have come down to us in ancient texts and myths. These mysteries challenge our understanding of the past, making us wonder if the ancients witnessed something far more extraordinary than we can imagine. Vimana is a term from ancient Indian Sanskrit texts that describes flying vehicles or chariots that can move through the air and sometimes in space as well as underwater. Vimanas are mentioned in various ancient Hindu scriptures such as the Vedas, Puranas, Mahabharata, and Ramayana. In these epic works, Vimanas are described as celestial chariots of the gods, which could take various forms, from birds to clouds, and move with incredible speed. They had various abilities, including invisibility, the ability to shrink and increase in size, and the ability to use powerful weapons. For example, the Ramayana tells of Pushpaka Vimana, the flying chariot of Ravana, and later Rama, which could move at the speed of thought. The Mahabharata mentions Vimanas used in great battles, where they fired smokeless lightning bolts and fire arrows, which is interpreted by some as a description of an ancient high-tech weapon. Some texts even contain relatively detailed descriptions of the structures of Vimanas, the materials from which they were made, and the sources of their energy. Mercury or solar energy are often mentioned. These descriptions are striking in their detail and anachronism, as they speak of flying machines in an era when, according to traditional history, mankind was just beginning to master primitive boats and chariots. For many, these texts are not just myths, but evidence of the existence of ancient, highly developed technologies, or even contacts with unearthly civilizations, whose vehicles were mistaken for the chariots of the gods. The main mystery associated with Vimanas is whether they were real flying machines created by an ancient civilization, or whether they are just a figment of the mythological imagination of ancient Hindus. If Vimanas existed, where did these technologies go? Why have they not been passed down to subsequent generations? And why is there no archaeological evidence of their existence? The lack of physical remnants of Vimanas, drawings, or detailed instructions for their creation that would be understandable to modern engineers is a serious obstacle to recognizing their real existence. The question is also how ancient humans could have had such advanced knowledge of flight and weapons that would seem to be significantly ahead of their time. Traditional scientific hypotheses about Vimanas mostly treat them as symbolic or allegorical descriptions. Some of the most famous examples of celestial phenomena, metaphors for the power of the gods, or just the fiction of ancient authors who tried to explain the natural phenomena they observed or create fascinating stories. Perhaps the Vimanas were just fantastic images inspired by the flight of birds or the observation of rare atmospheric phenomena, such as clouds of unusual shapes. References to weapons and lightning may be exaggerated descriptions of common weapons of the time or natural phenomena such as thunderstorms. In addition, the detailed descriptions of constructions may have been the result of late additions or interpretations of texts rather than original evidence. Linguistically, many of these texts are poetic and metaphorical, making their literal interpretation problematic. Thus, for most scholars, Vimanas are an element of rich Indian mythology, not evidence of ancient technology. However, proponents of unconventional theories about Vimanas claim that they were real flying machines possibly created by a highly developed but lost civilization that existed before our known history. Some speculate that the Vimanas were created with the help of alien technology or were the alien ships themselves that the ancient people observed and described in their texts. Other versions speak of ancient astronauts who visited Earth and were mistaken for gods, and their flying machines for Vimanas. There are theories that the Vimanas may have used energy sources unknown to science, such as the liquid mercury mentioned in some texts, which may have been a description of some kind of anti-gravity technology or jet engine. These hypotheses, although they sound fantastic, emphasize the striking similarity of the descriptions of Vimanas with modern ideas about flying machines, which makes us think about the possibility that the ancient Indians had knowledge that we are only now beginning to comprehend. In Indian folklore and mythology, Vimanas occupy a central place, being a symbol of divine power and heavenly worlds. They are often mentioned in legends of gods, heroes, and sages who could travel between worlds in their flying chariots. Texts such as the Vimanaka Shastra, which, although a controversial modern text that claims to be based on ancient knowledge, describe in detail the construction of Vimanas, their components, and the principles of flight, which only fuels interest in this mystery. These traditions reinforce the belief that ancient people possessed not only spiritual, but also technological knowledge that was lost over time, and that the Vimanas are just one of many evidences of this golden age. What is really hidden behind the descriptions of Vimanas in ancient Indian texts? Were they real flying machines or a figment of mythological imagination? If they existed, then where did this technology disappear and why did it not reach us? And what other secrets of ancient science and contact with other worlds can be encoded in thousands of years of manuscripts, waiting to be deciphered to tell us about the heavenly chariots that once soared over ancient India, leaving only the echo of their mysterious flights? Missing ships and mysterious disappearances, unsolved mysteries of the seas. The ocean, majestic and unpredictable, has always been a source of both life and mystery. Its bottomless depths and vast expanses contain stories about ships that have disappeared without a trace, about entire crews that have sunk into the unknown, and about mystical phenomena that defy the laws of physics and logic. These water riddles, shrouded in salt fog and legends, remind us that even in the age of satellites and radars, the sea remains one of the most mysterious and dangerous places on Earth, where logic is powerless and reality pales in the face of the inexplicable. Mary Celeste is perhaps the most famous and frightening case of a ghost ship in the history of navigation, which has become synonymous with marine mysteries and unexplained disappearances. The brigantine Mary Celeste was discovered drifting in the Atlantic Ocean on December 4, 1872, by the ship Dei Gracia. The ship was in good condition, its cargo, industrial alcohol, it was intact, the spars and rigging were in order, and the ship's log, despite some missing entries, indicated that the last entry was made 10 days before the discovery. However, there was not a single soul on board. Neither Captain Benjamin Briggs, nor his wife Sarah, nor their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, nor the 7 crew members. All their personal belongings, including clothes, jewelry, toys of the child, remained in their places. Supplies were plentiful, and the supply of drinking water was sufficient. The only signs of anything unusual were overturned buckets on the deck, the absence of a sextant, chronometer, and ship's documents, except for the ship's log, as well as a slight damage in the bow, which, however, did not threaten the buoyancy of the ship. The lifeboat was also missing. This circumstance led to the assumption that the crew left the ship for some reason. But what could make an experienced captain and his crew abandon a perfectly serviceable ship in the middle of the ocean, leaving behind all their valuables, including money and personal belongings? It was this complete and inexplicable evacuation of the crew, without any signs of struggle, storm, or illness, that turned the Mary Celeste into an eternal maritime mystery, a symbol of the elusiveness and danger of the ocean. The main mystery of the Mary Celeste is the complete disappearance of the entire crew for no apparent reason. No bodies were found, and no witnesses witnessed what happened on board. The true motives that prompted the people to leave the ship remain unknown, making this case one of the most intriguing unsolved mysteries in the history of navigation, which still causes controversy and speculation. Traditional scientific hypotheses trying to explain the disappearance of the crew of the Mary Celeste focused on sudden natural phenomena or mistakes in the captain's judgment. The most common theory is the evaporation of alcohol from barrels. Perhaps one of the barrels of alcohol began to leak, and the alcohol vapors accumulated in the hold created an explosion threat. The captain, fearing an explosion, which could cause minor damage in the bow, could order the crew to temporarily leave the ship in a lifeboat, tying it to the Mary Celeste. Then, for some reason, such as a broken rope, a sudden storm, or a wave, the dinghy could have been swept away, and the crew lost their lives at sea or hit reefs. Another version is a funnel-shaped tornado or water tornado that could suddenly cover the ship, causing panic and forcing the crew to abandon the ship, and then the tornado disappeared, leaving the ship intact but without people. A version of an underwater earthquake or an underwater volcanic eruption is also being considered, which could cause a temporary release of gas or water, scaring the crew and forcing them to run. However, all these theories face the problem of lack of convincing evidence and cannot fully explain all the details of the mystery, such as the lack of navigation devices and personal belongings of the crew in the lifeboat. Along with rational explanations, there are many more unconventional, mystical, or even criminal theories that try to explain the fate of Mary Celeste. One of the most popular versions is crew mutiny or piracy. However, the lack of signs of a struggle, untouched cargo, and personal belongings of the crew refute this theory. Another more fantastic version is an attack by a sea monster or a giant squid, which could drag the crew away without leaving any traces. But this belongs to the realm of pure fiction. Some esotericists attribute the disappearance to anomalies in the Bermuda Triangle. Although the Mary Celeste drifted significantly north of it, there are versions about the abduction of aliens or about moving the ship in time or in another dimension. Another theory suggests that the crew may have experienced an unknown illness or mass hallucination caused by fumes poisoning or eating tainted food, which led to their irrational decision to leave the ship. The story of the Mary Celeste is deeply rooted in maritime folklore and popular culture, becoming the archetype of the ghost ship. It has inspired countless novels, films, and short stories, many of which attempt to offer their own, often dramatic version of events, linking the disappearance to curses, supernatural powers, or mysterious murders. In maritime legends, the Mary Celeste is often mentioned as a warning of the treachery of the ocean and the unseen dangers that await sailors in its silent depths. Her story is a reminder that even the most experienced sailors can fall prey to the inexplicable, and that the sea holds its secrets as jealously as the ancient gods. What really happened on board the Mary Celeste that caused the entire crew to abandon a perfectly serviceable vessel? Why was not a single person found? And what secrets did they take with them to the abyss of the ocean? Will humanity ever be able to solve this age-old sea riddle? Or will the Mary Celeste forever remain a drifting ghost, silently reminding us of its inexplicable fate and that the ocean can sometimes be much more mysterious and treacherous than we can imagine? Celestial maps and star messages, riddles of ancient astronomy. Ancient civilizations seem to have a surprisingly deep knowledge of space beyond the capabilities of their technology. Star charts carved in stone and wonderfully accurate astronomical observatories whisper about contacts with other worlds or about the forgotten science that allows you to read the messages of the stars. These artifacts are not just evidence of curiosity about the sky, but rather encrypted messages from the past, indicating the connection of man with the cosmic order. The Nebra, Nebra sky disk, discovered in 1999 in Saxony-Anhalt, Germany, is one of the most significant and controversial archaeological discoveries related to ancient astronomy. Created around 1600 BC, this bronze disk is about 32 nanometer in diameter and is covered with gold applications depicting the sun, or full moon, a crescent moon, and many stars, including the Pleiades cluster. At the edges of the disk are two golden arc-shaped objects that are supposed to indicate the horizon or positions of the solstices. The third golden arc-shaped object, located at the bottom, may symbolize the solar boat or the Milky Way. The Nebra disk is considered the oldest known concrete image of cosmic phenomena in the world, made with amazing accuracy. It demonstrates ancient Europeans' deep knowledge of astronomy and their ability to predict the seasons, which was critical to agriculture and religious practices. Its functionality as a calendar or astronomical instrument for matching lunar and solar cycles is unique to the Bronze Age and attests to a highly developed culture and belief system centered around celestial phenomena. The disk was probably used not only for practical purposes, but also in rituals, being a sacred object that connects the earthly world with the cosmic order. The main secret of the sky disk from Nebra is the level of knowledge that it demonstrates and the origin of this knowledge. How could a Bronze Age community with no written language or advanced mathematical systems have achieved such a deep understanding of astronomy, able to accurately track the celestial cycles, and even possibly synchronize the lunar and solar calendars? The lack of other similar artifacts or written evidence of such advanced astronomical observations in Europe at that time makes the Nebra disk a unique anachronism. Was this knowledge passed down from more advanced but now forgotten civilizations? Or was it the result of an independent but incredibly rapid development of astronomical observations? It is not known who the creators of this disk were, how they processed metals and gold with such precision, and how exactly they came to their astronomical conclusions. The disk seems to have appeared out of nowhere, leaving us with the fact of the existence of advanced knowledge, whose origin remains unclear. Traditional scientific hypotheses suggest that the knowledge reflected in the Nebra disk was the result of long and systematic observations of the sky, passed down from generation to generation. Perhaps there were specialized groups of priests or sages who devoted their lives to the study of celestial phenomena, accumulating empirical data. The use of the disk may have been part of a complex ritual practice where stargazing was integrated into religious beliefs and practices. Metals for the disk and gold appliques could be obtained through extensive trade networks, and metalworking skills could be developed by local craftsmen through experimentation and training. Scientists also speculate that the disk may have been part of a broader tradition of astronomical observations, traces of which have yet to be discovered, or that its uniqueness is due to the accidental preservation of this single artifact, while others may have been lost or destroyed. Unconventional and mystical versions of the Nebra celestial disk often go far beyond the scope of archaeology. Some proponents of paleocontact suggest that amazing astronomical knowledge could have been obtained from extraterrestrial civilizations, which may have passed this information on to ancient people, helping them navigate the world in time. Other theories suggest the existence of a global ancient civilization with advanced knowledge, some of which was passed on to various cultures around the world, including the creators of the Nebra disk. There are also esoteric versions that claim that the disk was created using cosmic knowledge obtained through meditation, prophecies, or special states of consciousness that allowed people of the Bronze Age to see and understand celestial patterns at a level inaccessible to ordinary perception. These hypotheses, although not supported by scientific evidence, reflect the depth of the mystery that this artifact represents. In European folklore and mythology of the Bronze Age, although there are no direct legends about the creation of a celestial disk from Nebra, there are widespread legends about the connection of man with the heavens and divine forces. Many ancient cults were associated with the sun, moon, and stars, which were considered the incarnations of the gods or their messengers. There were myths about deities who traveled through the sky in solar boats, about stars as the souls of their ancestors, or about celestial deer carrying the dawn. These traditions may have served as the basis for the creation of objects such as the Nebra disk, which served as a ritual object to help people interact with the cosmic order and enlist the favor of the heavenly forces. The disc could be not just an instrument, but a sacred symbol, a miniature representation of the cosmos, intended for rituals designed to ensure fertility and prosperity. What does each gold applique on the sky disk from Nebra actually symbolize? How did its creators gain such deep knowledge about celestial phenomena? And why did this knowledge seem to disappear from European culture for millennia? What other astronomical secrets might be hidden in such artifacts waiting to be discovered? And can we, by studying this disk, come closer to understanding how ancient people perceived the cosmos and what role the heavens played in their lives, in their beliefs, and in their silent riddles that have not yet been solved? Stone faces and unfathomable sculptures, forgotten masters and their messages. When we look at ancient sculptures, especially those that have monumentality or a strange, unearthly expressiveness, we get the feeling that we are looking at not just works of art, but messages encoded in stone. Who were the masters who possessed such incredible skills, and what ideas did they try to convey through the millennia? These stone faces, silently looking down on us from the depths of time, seem to be guardians of long-forgotten truths, the echo of which is barely discernible in the noise of modernity. Moai giant statues on Easter Island, Rapa Nui, located in the southeastern Pacific Ocean, are one of the most recognizable and intriguing archaeological sites in the world. Created by the ancient Rapa Nui people between 1250 and 1500 AD, these monolithic stone figures carved from volcanic tuff are striking in size. The average height of the moai is about 4 meters, and some reach more than 10 meters and weigh up to 75 tons. In total, about 900 statues were found on the island, most of which are still located in the Rongorongo quarry, from where they were transported to the coastal ceremonial platforms, Ahu. Moai are stylized images of ancestors or important chieftains with elongated faces, deep-set eyes, massive noses, and prominent chins. Some statues had pukao, red headdresses or hairstyles made from a different type of volcanic stone. These statues are believed to have served as the embodiment of ancestral spirits, ariki, and connected the living with the dead, ensuring the prosperity and protection of the community. They were the center of religious and social rituals, symbolizing power, status, and a spiritual connection to the past, and their creation was the pinnacle of ancient Rapa Nui skill. The main secret of moai lies in the methods of their transportation and installation. How did the ancient Rapa Nui people, without wheels, draft animals, there were none on the island, or advanced technology, move these colossal blocks of stone up to 18 kilometers from the quarry, and then lift them to an upright position on Ahu? This required an unimaginable amount of work, engineering savvy, and a complex organization that we have no direct evidence of. In addition, the sudden cessation of their creation and the mass overturning of statues, which occurred around the 17th and 18th centuries, are also mysterious. Most of the moai were found lying face down, as if deliberately knocked down. What was the reason for this cultural collapse and the active vandalism against their own shrines? Was it the result of tribal wars, famine, environmental disaster, or a change in religious beliefs? These questions remain unanswered, leaving the moai silent witnesses to dramatic events. Traditional scientific hypotheses about transportation. Moai's focus is on using wooden sleds, rollers, and ropes. Experiments show that with the help of a large number of people and a system of levers, it was possible to move the statues by dragging or walking, swinging them from side to side, as modern researchers do. For vertical installation, mounds and lever systems could be used to gradually raise the statue. The theory of the collapse of the Rapa Nui civilization is most often associated with an ecological catastrophe. Intensive deforestation to move moai, build canoes, and use wood for fuel is thought to have led to the island's desertification, soil erosion, and resource loss. This in turn caused famine, tribal wars over the remaining resources, and as a result, a decline in the authority of the chiefs and priests, whose power was linked to the moai. The toppling of the statues may have been an act of iconoclasm during these conflicts. Unconventional and mystical versions of the moai are as numerous as the statues themselves. Some proponents of paleocontacts suggest that the builders of Moai received help from extraterrestrial civilizations that either possessed advanced technologies or passed on to the ancient Rapa Nui people knowledge about levitation or anti-gravity. Other theories claim that the statues were created using lost esoteric knowledge about sound vibrations that could soften the stone or make it easier to move. There are also ideas that Moai were not just statues but energy transmitters or connecting points with certain ley lines of the earth, and their location had a deep mystical meaning, allowing them to absorb and transmit the energy of the cosmos or the earth. Some suggest that the fall of civilization may have been due not to ecology, but to karmic retribution for some ancient crime or violation of sacred laws. In the legends of the Rapa Nui people, the Moai occupy a central place. The most famous legend says that the statues walked by themselves with the help of the magic power of mana, which was possessed by priests and leaders. This tradition reflects the belief in the supernatural power of the ancestors and their connection with the divine. According to other myths, Moai were living creatures that could move and speak until they were cursed or lost their power. The island's folklore also describes wars between the long-eared and short-eared tribes, which may have led to the downfall of statues and the general collapse of society. These legends, despite their fantastic nature, are a valuable source of information about the worldview of the Rapa Nui people and their attempts to explain the dramatic events they witnessed. Like the ancient Rapa Nui people, these colossal statues were actually moved and installed. And what exactly was the reason for their sudden cessation of construction and mass toppling? What secrets are hidden beneath those stone faces that stare out at the ocean in silence? What lessons can Easter Island's history teach us about the fragility of civilizations and the consequences of unbalancing nature? And will we ever be able to fully unravel the messages encoded in these stone giants that seem to hold their silent riddles forever, calling us to their desolate shores? Lost libraries and hidden lore. When wisdom faded into oblivion. History doesn't just record events, it stores a huge amount of knowledge accumulated over the centuries. But what if whole layers of this wisdom have been lost? Lost libraries, destroyed scrolls, languages that have sunk into oblivion? All this is evidence of how easily the collective memory of humanity can disappear, leaving behind only guesses about what those golden ages were like when knowledge flowed like a river. These lost treasures of intelligence whisper to us of great but forgotten discoveries and philosophical insights that could change the course of our civilization. The Library of Alexandria, founded in the 3rd century BC in Alexandria, Egypt, was not just a collection of books, but the largest and most prestigious center of knowledge in the ancient world. Founded by the Ptolemies, the rulers of Egypt, it sought to collect all the knowledge of the world, and its funds, according to various estimates, numbered from 40,000 to 700,000 scrolls. It was not only a repository of texts, but also an intellectual center where the greatest scientists and thinkers of antiquity worked, such as Eratosthenes, who measured the circumference of the earth, Euclid, the founder of geometry, and Hipparchus, the great astronomer. The library was part of the Museum, the world's first research institute where scientists conducted research, wrote commentaries, copied and translated texts. The Library of Alexandria contained treatises on philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, literature, history, and all the known sciences of the time. It was a symbol of the Enlightenment, the universality of knowledge and the desire to understand the world, a center that attracted minds from all over the Mediterranean, and its heyday marked the golden age of Hellenistic science and culture. The main mystery of the Library of Alexandria lies in the causes and extent of its destruction. There is no consensus about when and how it was destroyed, which led to the death of such a huge amount of knowledge. Was it a single event or a series of gradual destructions? We know that it suffered a fire during Julius Caesar's campaign in Egypt in 48 BC, but it is likely that most of its foundations were salvaged or restored. Then it could have suffered during conflicts with the Emperor Aurelian in the 3rd century AD, as well as during the Christian persecution of pagans in the 1st century, when the Serapeum, the daughter library, was destroyed. Finally, the Arab conquest of Egypt in the 7th century is also mentioned as a possible factor. However, there is no clear evidence of the complete and final destruction of all funds at any one time. This uncertainty leaves a huge field for speculation and regret about the lost wisdom that could accelerate the scientific and technological progress of mankind for centuries. Traditional scientific hypotheses tend to favor a gradual decline and a series of partial destructions, rather than a single grandiose catastrophe. Caesar's fire, although it caused damage, did not completely destroy the library. In the future, the funds could suffer from reduced funding, lack of interest from the rulers, censorship, and religious conflicts. The Christianization of the Roman Empire led to the destruction of many pagan texts, which probably affected the Library of Alexandria as well. The decline of Alexandria itself as an intellectual center, the shift of attention to other capitals and libraries, for example in Pergamum, and the general decline in literacy and interest in science in late antiquity may have contributed to the neglect and looting of its treasures. It is likely that many of the scrolls were simply abandoned, decayed over time, or were used for other purposes rather than being burned overnight. Unconventional and mystical versions of the fate of the Library of Alexandria are often fueled by the idea of deliberately hiding knowledge. Some suggest that the most valuable or dangerous texts for the ruling regimes, or religious dogmas, may have been smuggled out and hidden in some secret vaults. These theories often link lost knowledge to occult or alchemical traditions that claim that the true wisdom of Alexandria still exists, but is accessible only to a select few. There are versions that part of the library could be transferred to underground catacombs or even to other dimensions, becoming part of the mystical Akasha, the repository of all knowledge in the universe. The wildest hypotheses suggest that the knowledge that was thought to be lost was obtained from extraterrestrial civilizations or from the vanished Atlantis, and that their deliberate destruction was part of a conspiracy aimed at suppressing human progress. In ancient Greek and Roman lore, as well as in later medieval folklore, the idea of great lost knowledge was very common. References to the Golden Age, when people lived in harmony with the gods and possessed deep wisdom, often reflect longing for lost knowledge. The legends of Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom and writing, who wrote down all secret knowledge on emerald tablets and hid them from people, or of Hermes Trismegistus and his Hermetic texts, symbolize the idea of the divine origin of wisdom and its subsequent disappearance. In Arabic and Persian tales, there are also stories of treasures of knowledge hidden in secret places guarded by spirits. These myths reflect a deep human concern about the fragility of knowledge and the possibility of its complete loss, as well as the belief that somewhere this knowledge still exists, waiting to be discovered. What really happened to the Library of Alexandria, and what knowledge has sunk forever into the abyss of oblivion along with its scrolls? What breakthroughs in science, philosophy, or art could be achieved if this knowledge reached us? Can we ever discover lost texts that could dramatically change our understanding of antiquity? And what can this tragic example tell us about the value of preserving information and the fragility of human civilization in the face of time, ignorance, and destruction, leaving us to silently regret the great but lost wisdom? Mysterious disappearances, cultures that disappeared into thin air. History remembers not only the great rise of civilizations, but also their inexplicable falls. Sometimes entire nations that have flourished for centuries seem to vanish into thin air, leaving only ruins and questions behind. What made them leave their homes? Were they absorbed by other tribes, destroyed by natural disasters, or was their disappearance the result of deeper, mystical causes that still elude our understanding? These vanished cultures are silent reminders of the fragility of human existence. The Maya, a Mesoamerican civilization that flourished in what is now Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, reached its peak in the classical period, approximately 250 to 900 AD. The Maya were outstanding astronomers, mathematicians, architects, and artists. They developed a complex system of hieroglyphic writing, created an incredibly accurate calendar that surpassed the European calendar of that time, and built majestic cities with pyramids, temples, and palaces such as Tikal, Palenque, Chichen Itza, and Copan. Their cities were connected by a network of roads, and their society had a complex social structure with priest-kings, artisans, and farmers. The Maya contributed to mathematics by inventing the concept of zero long before the Europeans, and had a deep knowledge of the movement of celestial bodies, which allowed them to predict eclipses and create complex time cycles. Their art is striking in its detail and symbolism, and the system of agriculture based on terracing and irrigation made it possible to support a large population. This civilization was a prime example of a highly developed culture, capable of monumental construction and complex intellectual achievements. The main mystery of the Mayan civilization is the so-called collapse of the classical Maya, which occurred approximately between 800 and 900 AD. During this period, many major cities in the southern lowlands were suddenly abandoned. Monumental construction and stone carvings stopped, the population declined sharply, and the centers of power moved north. This was not a one-off event, but rather a series of crises that engulfed the region. The lack of a single, generally accepted reason for this collapse is puzzling. Why did such a developed and seemingly stable civilization, which flourished for centuries, so suddenly and massively abandon its majestic cities, leaving them to the mercy of the jungle? There was no clear evidence of large-scale wars, epidemics, or mass migrations that could explain such a complete decline. The Maya seem to have disappeared, leaving behind only silent ruins. Traditional scientific hypotheses about the Mayan collapse usually consider a complex of interrelated factors. Environmental theories suggest that prolonged droughts caused by climate change may have led to water depletion and crop failures, leading to mass starvation and migration. Overpopulation could exacerbate the problem, as intensive farming, especially slash and burn, could lead to soil degradation and desertification. Wars and internal conflicts between city-states could deplete resources and lead to instability as cities fought over the remaining land and water. Political and social factors, such as peasant revolts against the elite or loss of faith in their priestly rulers, if they could not provide rain or prosperity, could also play a role. It was probably a combination of all these factors. Long-term environmental problems compounded by political instability and conflict, which led to decentralization and a mass exodus of people from large centers. Unconventional and mystical versions of the Mayan collapse offer more exotic explanations. Some proponents of paleocontact suggest that the Maya may have been in contact with extraterrestrial civilizations, and their sudden disappearance may have been due to the departure of these creatures or to some cosmic event that affected their consciousness or physical existence. Other theories speak of changing planetary cycles or energy shifts that may have affected the Earth and humanity, causing the Mayan spiritual or energetic transition to another dimension. There are versions of the secret knowledge that the Maya possessed and used to move to a different state of being, or to move to some hidden shelter. Some esotericists associate the collapse with karmic retribution or violation of certain cosmic laws, which led to their disappearance as a civilization. In the myths and legends of the Maya, as well as in the modern traditions of the indigenous peoples of Central America, you can find echoes of great catastrophes and transformations. The myth of the four creations and destructions of the world in the Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Quiche Maya, speaks of cycles of creation and destruction, which can be a metaphor for historical collapses. Legends about the end of the world or the change of epochs in the Mayan calendar, for example, the end of the 2012 cycle, are also interpreted as predictions of large-scale transformations. Some legends speak of jungle spirits that devoured cities or of divine punishment for pride or disequilibrium. These myths, while not directly explained by archaeological evidence, reflect a deep-rooted view of the cyclical nature of existence, the power of nature, and the secrets that lie hidden in the heart of the jungle, where you can still hear the whispers of the ancient gods. What really happened to the great Mayan civilization that seemed to vanish into thin air, leaving behind only silent pyramids swallowed up by the jungle? What secrets are hidden in their still not fully deciphered texts that could tell us about the true reasons for their collapse? Can we learn from their disappearance for our own future, especially in the context of climate change and sustainable development? And what do these abandoned cities, Their moss-covered stones whisper to us about the nature of oblivion and the elusiveness of a truth that still eludes us. Forgotten inventions. Technologies that were ahead of their time. Sometimes in the depths of history, we come across evidence of technologies that seem impossible for their era. These anachronisms challenge our linear understanding of progress, making us wonder, were ancient civilizations more advanced than we realize? Or did they have knowledge derived from sources we can't even imagine? These forgotten inventions whisper about a genius who was ahead of his time and about opportunities that were lost, as if forever sunk into oblivion. Roman concrete, or opus cementitium, is one of the most impressive examples of forgotten technologies. The ancient Romans, beginning around the 3rd century BC, developed a unique concrete recipe that allowed them to build monumental and incredibly durable structures, such as the Pantheon, Colosseum, aqueducts, bridges, and harbors. Unlike modern Portland cement, which eventually collapses under the influence of water, especially seawater, Roman concrete only became stronger, and some buildings have been standing for more than 2 millennia, withstanding earthquakes and erosion. The secret to its longevity was the use of volcanic ash, known as pozzolan, which was mined in the Pozzuoli area, hence the name. When combined with lime, seawater, and volcanic rock, pozzolan entered into a complex chemical reaction, forming minerals that over time healed microcracks, making the material surprisingly self-healing and resistant to saltwater. The Romans could pour concrete directly under the water, which allowed them to build sea breakwaters and ports that could withstand the most severe storms. This technology was key to the Roman Empire's building achievements and allowed it to build colossal and functional structures, demonstrating an engineering superiority that was lost for many centuries after the fall of Rome. The main secret of Roman concrete is the loss of its unique recipe and production technology after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Why was such an effective and durable building material forgotten for more than 1,000 years until the 18th century, when engineers again began to experiment with cement? Although the components, lime, sand, water, pozzolan, were available, the exact ratio, mixing methods, and solidification process in seawater were lost. There are no detailed treatises or manuals that fully describe this technology. This lack of continuity of knowledge remains a mystery. Was this the result of the general decline of education and science in the Middle Ages, the destruction of trade routes? Or was the secret kept in the strictest secrecy and was lost along with the death of those who owned it? This loss slowed construction progress on the continent, forcing subsequent generations to reinvent the wheel. Traditional scientific hypotheses explain the disappearance of Roman concrete by a number of factors. First, the economic and social decline following the fall of the Roman Empire led to a reduction in large-scale construction. The new states and societies had neither the resources nor the organizational structure for such ambitious projects. Second, loss of knowledge. It was associated with the destruction of educational institutions, libraries, and guilds of craftsmen. Recipes and techniques were probably passed down orally or in limited recordings that did not survive the troubled times. Third, the cessation of pozzolan mining and the destruction of trade routes could make the key ingredient unavailable in regions where it was previously used. Perhaps the remaining craftsmen simply could not reproduce the unique composition of the material without access to the necessary volcanic ash. In the Middle Ages, builders focused on other materials such as stone and wood, as well as brick, which led to the gradual abandonment of complex concrete technologies. Unconventional and mystical versions of Roman concrete sometimes go beyond the scope of material science. Some proponents of ancient mysteries suggest that the Romans may have used unknown chemical additives or alchemical processes that gave their concrete special properties, and the secret of these additives was lost or deliberately hidden. There are theories that knowledge of pozzolan and its unique properties may have come from older, more advanced civilizations, such as Atlantis, or even from extraterrestrial beings who passed on this magical knowledge to the ancient Romans. Some esotericists believe that the process of self-healing concrete was associated with the energy fields of the earth or with special vibration that the Romans were able to channel into their buildings, giving them not only physical, but also a certain mystical strength. In Roman folklore and mythology, although there are no direct legends about the creation of concrete, there is an idea of the divine patronage of construction and architecture. Gods such as Vesta, guardian of the hearth and building fire, or divine artisans such as Vulcan could grant people special knowledge and skills in construction. Legends of brilliant engineers and architects who could create miracles beyond human capabilities may also have echoed these forgotten technologies. Later in the Middle Ages, some ancient Roman structures such as aqueducts or bridges were perceived as the work of giants or wizards because their scale and strength were incomprehensible to the people of that time, which only emphasizes the loss of knowledge about how they were built. What was really hidden in the unique recipe of Roman concrete, and why was such a valuable technology completely lost for millennia? Can we fully restore this ancient knowledge and use it to create even more durable and sustainable structures in our modern world? What other engineering and construction secrets of ancient civilizations might have been lost, waiting to be rediscovered? And what can this forgotten technology tell us about the cyclical nature of progress, its ups and downs, and how easily the greatest achievements can be swallowed up in the silence of history if they are not carefully passed down from generation to generation? Lost races and unknown peoples, shadows on the edge of history. In addition to the great known civilizations, the annals of history, or rather myths, whisper to us about the existence of peoples and races whose traces are barely perceptible. They may have been the forerunners of today's cultures, disappeared without a trace, or existed in parallel, but out of the range of our understanding. These lost races challenge our understanding of the linear evolution of humanity, suggesting that the world of the past was much more complex and diverse than we can imagine, and that many pages of its history remain unwritten. Prehistoric giants, or as they are called in some traditions, people before the flood, or Nephilim, in the biblical tradition, is a concept that is found in the myths, legends, and folklore of almost all peoples of the world. From Native American tales of mountain men to Scandinavian Jotuns, from Greek Titans to Hindu Daityas, there are stories everywhere of a race of beings of enormous stature and strength who preceded or co-existed with modern humanity. Archaeological records, although controversial, sometimes include finds that are interpreted by proponents of this theory as evidence of the existence of giants. Unusually large skeletons, tools that are too massive for the average person, or even giant footprints in ancient rocks. The Bible in Genesis 6:4 mentions the Nephilim. There were giants on the earth at that time, but especially from the time when the sons of God began to come into the daughters of men, and they began to bear children to them. Nephilim. Although official science attributes such finds to anomalies, forgeries, or misinterpretations of ordinary remains, the idea of ancient giants continues to stir minds and remain part of an alternate history, suggesting that our world was once inhabited by creatures whose size and strength surpassed the present, and that they may have been the builders of some of the most monumental and unfathomable structures. Ancient structures. The main mystery of prehistoric giants lies in the complete absence of significant, scientifically confirmed archaeological evidence of their existence, despite the ubiquity of legends. If such a race really existed, why aren't there vast cemeteries, monumental structures adapted to their size, or at least undisputed and numerous skeletal remains that could pass independent examination? The few finds that are presented as evidence often turn out to be fakes. Incorrect identification of animal remains, for example mammoths, or human skeletons with rare genetic abnormalities. Gigantism. This dissonance between the world's myths and the lack of material evidence creates a deep mystery. Were these giants a figment of the ancestral imagination, a metaphor for powerful but now forgotten chieftains or tribes? Or was their disappearance so complete and irreversible that it left no trace accessible to modern science? Traditional scientific hypotheses completely reject the existence of prehistoric giants as a separate race. They explain the legends with a metaphorical interpretation, mythological images. For example, gods or heroes could be described as giants to emphasize their supernatural power. Some legends may have been based on random finds of very large bones of extinct animals, dinosaurs, mammoths, which the ancient people mistook for the remains of giants. In addition, people with diseases that cause gigantism may have been an object of awe or fear, which gave rise to myths. In some cases, the legends may have been associated with a reinterpretation of ancient monumental buildings that seemed too big for ordinary people and were therefore attributed to beings of superhuman strength. Modern archaeology and anthropology do not find any convincing evidence for the existence of a separate species or race of people significantly larger than modern humans. Unconventional and mystical versions of prehistoric giants are much more diverse and intriguing. Many proponents believe that the giants were the first race of humanity to possess special abilities and technologies that were lost after some cataclysm, for example, the flood. Some associate them with paleocontact, suggesting that the giants were descendants of extraterrestrial beings who descended to Earth, or were themselves aliens with advanced knowledge. There are versions that the giants were antediluvian, keepers of ancient knowledge and technologies, which were deliberately hidden or taken away by them to secret shelters. Esoteric teachings often link them to the Atlanteans or other legendary civilizations, suggesting that the giants were part of these advanced but now extinct cultures, and that their disappearance was the result of spiritual degradation or karmic retribution. In the myths, legends, and religious texts of many peoples of the world, giants play a significant role. In Greek mythology, these are titans and giants who fought the Olympian gods, symbolizing primal, unbridled forces. In Norse mythology, Jotuns, giants, are the primordial beings from which the world was created, and who continue to threaten the order of gods and humans. Hindu texts mention Daityas and Rakshasas, powerful beings often of enormous stature, who challenge the gods. In Slavic folklore, there are heroes, sometimes possessing gigantic strength, as well as stories about chudis, ancient, powerful peoples who went underground. These myths, although very different in detail, are united by the general idea of the existence in ancient times of beings whose capabilities exceeded ordinary human beings, and whose fate was closely connected with the great catastrophes or the formation of the world. Were the prehistoric giants real or just a figment of the collective imagination? If they did exist, what caused them to disappear without leaving any undisputed traces behind? What secrets could they tell us about the early epochs of the Earth that we know nothing about? And what can these universal myths about giants tell us about the human quest to explain the incomprehensible, about the search for a golden age, and about our own fragility in the face of time and oblivion, leaving us with the eternal mystery of those who may have lived on this earth long before us? Underwater ruins and sunken cities. Ocean swallowed mysteries. The ocean is the greatest keeper of secrets. At its bottom rest not only sunken ships, but also entire cities that were swallowed up by the waves thousands of years ago. These underwater ruins, discovered by accident or as a result of purposeful research, whisper about catastrophes, about civilizations that may have existed on the border of land and sea, and about myths that take on new life when stone walls and streets are discovered underwater. Yonaguni-jima, Yonaguni Monument, is a controversial underwater formation off the coast of the Japanese island of Yonaguni, the westernmost point of Japan. Discovered in the 1980s by a local diver, this massive underwater object is a series of step terraces, straight lines, sharp angles, giant steps, and columns that some researchers believe are too regular and geometric to be an exclusively natural formation. The monument measures about 150 meters long and 40 meters wide, and its height reaches 25 meters. If it is indeed an artificial structure, then its age is estimated at 8,000 tons to 10,000. It's the last ice age, which makes it one of the oldest known monumental structures on Earth, is much older than the Egyptian pyramids. Its proponents point to the presence of alleged roads, staircases, altars, and even pyramid-shaped structures. If Yonaguni-jima is the work of a human being, it dramatically changes our understanding of prehistoric civilizations and their technological capabilities, suggesting the existence of a highly developed culture in the Asian region at an era when people are believed to have just begun to develop agriculture. This would be evidence of some sunken civilization that flourished at a time when sea levels were much lower. The main mystery of the Yonaguni Monument is whether it is a natural geological formation or an artificial structure created by an ancient civilization. Geologists point out that such step structures can form in sandstone under the influence of tectonic movements, erosion, and waves, creating the impression of regular shapes. On the other hand, proponents of artificial origin emphasize unnatural right angles, flat surfaces, parallel lines, and symmetrical elements that are rarely found in natural formations. The lack of obvious tools for cutting stone, settlement remains, or artifacts that clearly indicate human presence, other than the monument itself, also complicates interpretation. If this is an artificial structure, then who built it, what tools, and why did this civilization disappear without a trace, except for this mysterious formation at the bottom of the sea? Traditional scientific hypotheses, presented by most geologists, tend to believe that the Yonaguni monument is a natural geological formation. They indicate that the sandstone that makes up the monument has a natural tendency to form straight lines in stepped ledges when weathered and eroded along cracks. Earthquakes, of which there are many in this region, may also have contributed to the peeling of blocks, giving the impression of man-made structures. Scientists give examples of other natural formations that look architectural, but are the result of natural processes. They claim that the apparent tool marks may be caused by marine organisms or natural cracking of the rock. Thus, for all its external correctness, the monument does not contain unambiguous signs of human intervention, which would convince the majority of the scientific community. Unconventional and mystical versions of the Yonaguni monument, on the contrary, strongly insist on its artificial origin. Many proponents of this view associate it with the lost continent of Muya, or Lemuria, mythical lands in the Pacific Ocean that, according to legend, were home to highly developed civilizations that sank as a result of a global cataclysm. This theory is often based on esoteric teachings and legends. Others suggest that Yonaguni was part of an ancient Japanese civilization that flourished during the Nyoman period, around 10,300 BCE, and that its achievements were much higher than commonly believed. There are versions about underwater cities built by extraterrestrial civilizations, or about portals to other dimensions that could be located in these places. These hypotheses, although they have no scientific evidence, emphasize the uniqueness and inexplicability of the structure, forcing us to look for answers outside the generally accepted framework. In Japanese folklore and mythology, although there are no direct legends about the sunken city of Yonaguni, there are widespread legends about underwater kingdoms and deities living underwater. For example, Ryugujo, the palace of the dragon god Ryujin, located at the bottom of the ocean, is one of these mythical places. There are also stories of ancient lands sinking into the sea or divine wrath causing floods. These myths reflect the deep connection of Japanese culture to the sea and its mysteries, as well as the belief in the existence of hidden worlds and forces beneath the water surface. For many locals, the Yonaguni monument is part of this ancient tradition, embodying the mysterious forces and events that shape their world. Is the Yonaguni monument a natural wonder or evidence of the existence of an incredibly ancient, forgotten civilization whose cities were swallowed up by the sea? What other secrets are hidden at the bottom of the world's oceans, waiting to be discovered, capable of turning our understanding of the past of humanity upside down? And what can these underwater ruins tell us about the cyclical rise and fall of civilizations? About the power of nature that can erase the traces of the most grandiose construction, leaving us before the silent majesty of the sea and its eternal mysteries? Mysterious deaths and disappearances, fates hidden behind the centuries. Sometimes not only civilizations disappear without a trace, but also individuals, key figures whose lives and destinies could radically change the course of history. Their unexplained disappearances or strange deaths leave behind a trail of secrets, give rise to speculation about conspiracies, mystical events, or even the intervention of otherworldly forces. These mysterious fates whisper to us about the fragility of human existence and how even the great ones of this world can be swallowed up in the silence of history without leaving a clear explanation of their end. Nefertiti, the great queen of Egypt, wife of the reformer pharaoh Akhenaten and stepmother of Tutankhamun, is one of the most famous and mysterious figures of the ancient world. Living in the 14th century BC, she was not only the epitome of beauty, as her famous bust demonstrates, but also a powerful ruler who played a key role in the religious revolution initiated by Akhenaten when he introduced the cult of the one god Aten, the sun disk. Nefertiti was depicted on a par with the pharaoh, sometimes even wearing a royal crown, which was extremely unusual for the queens of Egypt and indicates her exceptional status and influence. She may even have ruled independently as a pharaoh, taking the name Neferuaten in the last years of Akhenaten's reign or after his death. It was a symbol of the greatness of the new kingdom, the center of the political and religious life of Amarna, the new capital that Akhenaten built. Her name, the Beautiful One Came, is still associated with elegance and strength, but her fate is shrouded in one of the deepest mysteries of ancient Egypt. The main mystery of Nefertiti lies in her sudden disappearance from historical records around the 12th year of Akhenaten's reign, circa 1336 BC. After this point, her name and images practically ceased to appear on monuments and papyri. What happened to her? Was she removed from power, died of natural causes, fell victim to palace intrigues? Or was her disappearance linked to her elevation to the status of co-ruler or even full-fledged pharaoh, after which she assumed a new name? Her tomb has not yet been found, which also adds to the mystery of her fate. This lack of information creates a gaping gap in Egypt's history, as Nefertiti was one of the most powerful women of her time, and her disappearance could not have happened without serious causes or consequences. Traditional scientific hypotheses about the fate of Nefertiti offer several options. The simplest one is that she died of illness or natural causes, and her death may have been taken as a bad sign or not properly documented due to the chaos that reigned in Amarna. Another popular version is that she was deposed or she fell out of favor with Akhenaten or influential priests who were dissatisfied with his religious reforms. Perhaps she faded into obscurity when her role in the cult of Aten became less significant. A third hypothesis that has received widespread support is that Nefertiti became the co-ruler of Akhenaten, assuming the throne name Ankh-Khepru-Ra, and may even have ruled Egypt for some time after his death, like Smenkhkare or the female pharaoh who preceded Tutankhamun. In this case, her disappearance from the records simply means a change of name, not a physical death or removal from power. However, the evidence supporting this version is indirect and does not give an unambiguous answer. Unconventional and mystical versions of Nefertiti include more dramatic scenarios. Some speculate that she may have been killed as a result of a plot by priests or nobles dissatisfied with Akhenaten's religious reforms, which threatened their power and well-being. There are theories that Nefertiti, having secret knowledge or connections with higher powers, perhaps even extraterrestrial ones, deliberately withdrew from the world or moved to another dimension, leaving only her famous beauty behind. Esotericists sometimes associate it with lost magical artifacts or with secret societies that may have existed in ancient Egypt and that controlled the course of events from the shadows. There are also suggestions that her disappearance was the result of divine intervention or some cosmic event that changed her fate. In ancient Egyptian folklore and mythology, although there are no direct legends about the disappearance of Nefertiti, there are many stories about strong female pharaohs, like Hatshepsut, and about divine wives who had great power and influence. Stories of the curses of the pharaohs and the vengeance of the gods for breaking sacred laws may have been associated with her name after the fall of the Amarna cult. Folk legends preserve the image of the beautiful queen, whose fate was mysterious, which contributed to the appearance of rumors and speculation. For the modern world, Nefertiti remains a symbol not only of beauty, but also of unsolved mystery, embodying that part of history that has always remained hidden from our eyes but continues to excite the imagination. What really happened to the great Queen Nefertiti, whose fate ended so abruptly in the annals of history? Was she buried in a secret, hitherto undiscovered tomb? Or was her disappearance more than just a physical death? What secrets did she take with her, and how did her fate affect the future course of Egyptian history? And what can this mysterious disappearance tell us about the fragility of power, the power of oblivion, and the eternal search for truth that eludes us through thousands of years, leaving only silent questions? Stone circles and ancient altars, places of power and forgotten rituals. There are mysterious stone circles, dolmens, and megalithic altars scattered all over the planet, whose true purpose is still a matter of debate. These monumental structures, built by ancient people, are often located in places with special energy, aligned with the heavenly bodies, and seem to hold echoes of forgotten rituals and sacred practices. They whisper of man's deep connection to the earth and the cosmos, of ancient beliefs that we can barely fathom, and of places of power where the veil between worlds may have been thinner. Carnac's Kamni, the Carnac stones, located in Brittany, France, are one of the largest and most impressive megalith complexes in the world. These thousands of upright stones, or menhirs, are arranged in rows, circles, and mounds, extending for several kilometers. These structures date back to the Neolithic period, roughly between 4500 and 2000 BC, making them older than Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids. The complex includes several main groups: Menhir with 11 rows of stones, Kermaria with 10 rows, and Kurliskan with 13 rows, as well as individual menhirs and dolmens. The largest surviving menhir is the Grand Menhir Brise. Menhir Brise, which once stood 20 meters high and weighed about 280 tons, but now lies broken into 4 parts. The exact purpose of the Carnac stones is still unclear. It is assumed that they could serve as astronomical observatories, indicating the positions of the sun and moon at the solstices and equinoxes, which was important for agriculture. They could also be ritual sites for religious ceremonies, burial sites, or territorial markers marking the boundaries of possessions. Their colossal scale and complexity of construction indicate the existence of a highly organized society, capable of mobilizing huge resources and having a deep knowledge of its surroundings and the heavens. The main secret of the Carnac Mountains. The problem of building stones is their true purpose and construction methods. If these were astronomical observatories, what was their accuracy and how deep was the ancients' knowledge of astronomy? If these were ritual centers, what rites were performed here and what deities were worshipped? How did Neolithic people, without wheels and sophisticated machinery, move and install thousands of massive stones, some of which weighed tens of tons? The lack of written evidence or images of this process leaves a huge field for speculation. No less mysterious is why these megaliths were arranged in this way, forming such complex and extended structures. What motivated the ancient people to put so much effort into creating these grand monuments? Traditional scientific hypotheses about the Carnac stones mainly focus on their astronomical function and use as calendars. Researchers such as Alexander Thom assume that the rows of rocks in their arrangement correspond to the lunar cycles and the movements of the sun, allowing them to predict important astronomical events. Construction methods likely included the use of wooden levers, skating rinks, and earthen ramps, as well as large amounts of labor. Structures could have been built over a long period of time by generations of people. Their purpose could also be religious or funerary, as with many other megalithic monuments. Perhaps the stones served to mark sacred sites, conduct initiation rites, or worship ancestors. Over time, their function could change, and the same structures could be used for different purposes. Unconventional and mystical accounts of the Carnac stones often offer more exotic explanations. Some proponents claim that the stones were installed using lost technology or psychokinetic abilities, possibly related to the special energy fields of the Earth, ley lines, that are believed to intersect in the area. Others suggest that the Carnac stones were created with the help of extraterrestrial civilizations, who used them as navigation beacons, power stations, or communication devices. There are versions that these megaliths were part of a huge astronomical map, much more complex than we can imagine, or that they were portals to other dimensions or timelines. Esotericists often associate them with ancient Druidic rituals, considering them centers of worship or places for the concentration of life force. In Breton folklore and Celtic legends, the Carnac stones are shrouded in many myths. The most famous legend says that they are Roman legionnaires turned into stones by the wizard Merlin or Saint Cornelius to stop their pursuit. This tradition emphasizes the supernatural nature of their origin and their immobility. Other myths speak of fairies and elves dancing among the stones at night, or that the stones themselves move when the moon is full. Local legends also link Carnac stones with healing properties and a special energy that attracts modern pilgrims and esotericists. These legends, passed down from generation to generation, reflect a deep reverence for these ancient structures and their role in the cultural landscape, even if their original purpose has long been forgotten. How did Neolithic people manage to build thousands of massive stones in such regular and extended lines? And what was the true purpose of these grandiose structures? What astronomical and sacred knowledge was encrypted in their location? What rituals were performed among these silent giants? And with what powers or deities did the ancient people try to communicate? And what can these stone rows, standing silently in the fields of Brittany, tell us about the ancient worldview, about the connection of man with nature and the cosmos, and about the unsolved secrets that they hold in their centuries-old embrace? Missing treasures and lost relics, echoes of unfulfilled discoveries. History is full of tales of untold riches, powerful artifacts, and sacred relics that have been lost to time. These missing treasures are not just material possessions. They symbolize lost knowledge, forgotten cultures, or key events that could change our understanding of the past. Their quest often turns into an obsession, and their absence leaves a gaping void in our annals, whispering of unfulfilled discoveries and secrets that may never be revealed. The Ark of the Covenant is one of the most sacred and mysterious artifacts in human history, a central element of Judaism and an important symbol for Christianity. According to the Bible, the Ark was built at the direction of God by Moses in the Sinai desert and was a wooden box overlaid with pure gold inside and out, with a golden cover known as the mercy seat, surmounted by 2 cherubim. Inside the ark were 2 tablets of the covenant with the 10 commandments, Aaron's rod, and a jar of manna. The Ark of the Covenant was not just a religious object. It symbolized God's presence among the Israelites, was a source of divine power, and served as a means of communicating with God. He accompanied the Israelites on their journeys, preceded them in their battles, and his presence was considered a guarantee of victory and divine protection. The Ark was the greatest shrine, an object of reverence and a source of miracles, firmly connected with the history of the Jewish people. It was kept in the tabernacle and later in the First Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. The main mystery of the Ark of the Covenant is its sudden and inexplicable disappearance. It is last mentioned in the Bible in connection with the destruction of the First Temple by the Babylonians in 587 BC. What happened to him? Was it destroyed, stolen, hidden, or moved to some secret location? The lack of any reliable historical or archaeological evidence about its fate after this point creates one of the greatest mysteries, giving rise to countless theories and searches. Its loss has left a huge void in religious and historical memory, and the belief in its existence and search continues to this day, fueling the hope of recovering the greatest relic. Traditional scientific and historical hypotheses about the fate of the Ark of the Covenant most often suggest its destruction or looting during the destruction of Jerusalem and the Temple by the Babylonian army led by Nebuchadnezzar II. It is likely that the Babylonians, after plundering Jerusalem, simply melted down the gold of the Ark and destroyed the wooden parts without giving it special significance as a religious symbol. Another version is that the Ark may have been hidden by the Levites, priests, in a hiding place under the temple or in a cave outside Jerusalem to protect it from desecration and destruction. This theory is supported by some Jewish traditions. However, despite numerous archaeological excavations in the area of the Temple Mount, no convincing evidence of the existence of such a cache or the Ark itself has been found. Unconventional and mystical versions of the Ark of the Covenant are much more numerous and dramatic. One of the most famous theories claims that the Ark was transported to Ethiopia. It is still preserved in the Church of St. Mary of Zion in Aksum, under the protection of a special monk. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church claims that they do have the Ark, but it is never shown to the public. Other versions say that the Ark was hidden by the Knights Templar during the Crusades and transported to Europe, for example, to France or Scotland. There are also theories that the Ark has supernatural powers and that it could have teleported or been taken away by higher powers from this world because its energy was too great for human comprehension. The most fantastic hypotheses link the Ark to extraterrestrial technology, claiming that it was a kind of energy device or communicator with a divine or alien source, and that its disappearance was a deliberate removal of this dangerous technology. In the Jewish and Christian tradition, the Ark of the Covenant is central to prophecies and messianic expectations. Many believe that it will be found and revealed to the world before the coming of the Messiah or during the restoration of the temple. Legends about its power, its ability to cause plagues and destroy enemies, as well as its role in miracles such as crossing the Jordan or the fall of the walls of Jericho, reflect its sacred significance. In modern folklore and popular culture, the Ark of the Covenant is often portrayed as a powerful, almost magical artifact that carries both a blessing and a curse, and its search becomes a symbol of adventure and eternal mystery. What really happened to the Ark of the Covenant, the greatest shrine of the Jewish people, and where is it now? What true powers did this mysterious artifact possess, and what knowledge could be associated with it? Will it ever be found? And what will this discovery mean for our understanding of ancient history, religion, and the nature of the divine? And what can this lost treasure, shrouded in legends and hopes, tell us about humanity's quest for contact with higher forces and the eternal search for meaning in a world full of silent mysteries? Cosmic catastrophes and celestial events. The influence of stars on Earth's destinies. Ancient civilizations were much more dependent on the heavens than we can imagine. Cosmic events, meteorite impacts, comets, supernova explosions could be perceived as signs of the gods, harbingers of change, or even direct causes of catastrophes. Some scientists suggest that such celestial phenomena could have caused the sudden disappearance of entire cultures or their degradation, leaving behind only myths and geological anomalies. These cosmic scars on the face of the earth whisper about the power of the universe and the fragility of human existence in the face of its greatness. The Tunguska meteorite, or Tunguska event, which occurred on June 30, 1908, near the Podkamennaya Tunguska River in eastern Siberia, Russian Empire, is one of the largest and most mysterious space disasters in the history of mankind, which is still fiercely debated. The shock wave from the explosion knocked down about 80 million trees over an area of more than 2,000 square kilometers. The energy of the explosion is estimated at 10 to 15 megatons in TNT equivalent, which is comparable to a thermonuclear bomb. The explosion was heard at a distance of up to 1,000 kilometers, and light phenomena, sky glow, were observed in Europe and North America for several days. However, despite the colossal scale of the event, no impact crater or significant meteorite fragments were found. The first expeditions to the area of the incident took place only decades later, which made it difficult to collect direct evidence. This phenomenon challenges traditional ideas about the fall of cosmic bodies and leaves a huge field for hypotheses about the nature of the object that caused the explosion. The Tunguska event is not just a natural phenomenon, it is one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century, which continues to excite scientists and enthusiasts around the world, forcing them to rethink possible space threats. The main mystery of the Tunguska event is the absence of a crater and fragments of a cosmic body. If it was an ordinary meteorite, then where are its traces? Why did it explode in the air at such an altitude, presumably 5-10 kilometers, without reaching the surface of the Earth and leaving no large fragments behind? This lack of physical evidence has given rise to many alternative theories, making the event unique in its kind. It is not known whether it was a stone, iron meteorite, comet, or something completely different. Until now, there is no single, generally accepted scientific explanation that would fully agree with all the observed facts, leaving the mystery of the Tunguska meteorite hanging in the air, like a phantom explosion, which has not found its material confirmation. Traditional scientific hypotheses about the Tunguska event mostly tend to the version of the explosion of a small asteroid or comet in the Earth's atmosphere. The most popular is the comet hypothesis. The object was a small fragment of a comet consisting mainly of ice and dust. When it entered the Earth's atmosphere, it evaporated due to extreme heating, not reaching the surface and not leaving significant fragments. The explosion occurred at an altitude of, which explains the absence of a crater. The asteroid hypothesis suggests that it was a stony asteroid that was brittle or porous enough to collapse and evaporate in the atmosphere before hitting Earth. Scientists are modeling the behavior of such objects to understand how the shock wave could cause such large-scale destruction without direct contact with the surface. These theories are based on the analysis of seismic and atmospheric data, as well as computer modeling. Unconventional and mystical versions of the Tunguska event abound in much more fantastic explanations. One of the most famous is the explosion of an alien spaceship, or UFO. Proponents of this theory suggest that an alien spacecraft exploded over Tunguska, possibly due to an accident or deliberate self-detonation to avoid detection. This version explains the absence of debris, they could have been removed, an unusual phenomena. Other hypotheses include an antimatter explosion, a black hole, microscopic, that flew through the Earth, or a Tesla weapon experiment. It is assumed that Nikola Tesla could have been involved in creating a powerful energy beam. There are also versions of a portal or time anomaly that led to an unexplained explosion. These hypotheses, although they have no scientific evidence, emphasize the uniqueness and mystery of the event, which still resists simple explanation. In the folklore and traditions of the indigenous peoples of Siberia inhabiting the Tunguska region, Evenks, there are legends about the heavenly fire, or fire god Agdi, who descended from heaven and destroyed the forest. Some shamanic traditions tell of a fiery arrow falling from the sky, which brought destruction but also renewed the earth. Evenki myths often mention spirits of the forest and sky who could be angry with people and send them trials. The 1908 event has undoubtedly become part of their oral history and mythology, interpreted as a manifestation of powerful, often punishing forces of nature or higher entities. These legends, passed down from generation to generation, are an attempt to make sense of and explain the grand but inexplicable event that changed their landscape forever. What really exploded over Tunguska in 1908, and why didn't it leave any material traces behind? Was this a unique natural phenomenon, or are its causes beyond our current understanding? What other cosmic catastrophes could have affected the fate of ancient civilizations, leaving behind only myths and riddles? And what can this Tunguska event, this silent echo of a huge explosion, tell us about the fragility of our world in the face of cosmic forces, and that even in the age of science, there are secrets that are still waiting to be solved in the vast expanses of the universe? Symbols and signs, encrypted messages from ancient cultures. Ancient civilizations left behind many symbols and signs carved in stone, applied to ceramics or woven into fabrics. Many of these symbols remain unencrypted. Their meaning is lost, and the messages they were meant to carry are silent. These encrypted messages whisper about worldviews, beliefs, and secrets that the ancients tried to pass on to their descendants, and which may contain clues to their own existence or to the structure of the world that we still cannot understand. The Nazca geoglyphs are colossal drawings on the Nazca Plateau in the Peruvian desert, representing one of the most amazing and mysterious archaeological sites in the world. Created by the ancient Nazca culture between 500 BC and 500 AD, these giant images of animals, monkey, hummingbird, spider, fish, lizard, plants, geometric shapes, triangles, trapezoids, spirals, and simple lines extend for hundreds of meters and are only visible from high altitudes, for example from the sky, hills, or from the air. The drawings were created by removing the top layer of reddish rocks and soil, exposing the lighter, yellowish soil beneath. Due to the dry climate and the absence of winds, these geoglyphs have been preserved in almost their original form for more than 2,000 years. Their number reaches several thousand, and they cover an area of about 450 square kilometers. The Nazca geoglyphs are a testament to the incredible engineering and artistic prowess of the ancient peoples, their deep knowledge of geometry and possibly astronomy, and their ability to organize work on a large scale. The main secret of Nazca geoglyphs lies in their true purpose and methods of creation. Why did the ancient people create such huge drawings that they could not see completely from the ground? How did they achieve such precision and proportionality in scale without being able to observe their work from a height? The lack of any written evidence or drawings explaining the process of creating or the purpose of geoglyphs leaves a huge field for speculation. Were they religious symbols, observatories, calendar markers, ritual roads, or something else? Why were they created in this particular place, and how could they relate to the daily life or beliefs of the Nazca culture, which eventually mysteriously disappeared? Traditional scientific hypotheses. The Nazca geoglyphs offer several explanations. One of the most popular theories is a ritual or religious purpose. Perhaps the lines and figures were used for ceremonies related to water and fertility, as the Nazca region is extremely arid and water was vital. Some animal figures may have been totems or symbols of deities. Another version is an astronomical calendar. Some lines may have been aligned to the sunrise and sunset points of the sun or moon on certain dates, helping the ancients track the seasons for agriculture. As for the creation methods, scientists suggest that the ancient Nazca used simple tools such as wooden stakes, ropes, and stones. They could draw scaled-down models on the ground and then scale them using anchor points and ropes, as modern surveyors do. They may also have used high ground or hot air balloons to monitor their work, although there is no evidence for this. Unconventional and mystical versions of the Nazca geoglyphs offer much more fantastic explanations. The most famous of these is the alien theory, first popularized by Erich von Däniken. She claims that the geoglyphs served as landing strips for extraterrestrial spaceships, or were messages left by extraterrestrials or created at their direction to communicate with them. This theory explains their huge size and visibility only from the air. Other versions say that the Nazca possessed lost flight technologies, such as balloons or primitive airplanes, or the ability to astral projection, which allowed them to see their creations from above. There are also hypotheses that geoglyphs were part of a complex energy network or ritual schemes that channeled water or concentrated spiritual energy, and their meaning was accessible only to selected priests. In the traditions and legends of the indigenous peoples of the Nazca region, echoes of ancient beliefs have been preserved. Although there are no direct myths about the creation of geoglyphs, there are legends about gods descending from the heavens and about mystical creatures that could leave traces on the ground. Traditions about ancestral paths or sacred paths may have been linked to geoglyphic lines that may have been used in ritual processions. For modern descendants of the Nazca, these drawings are a symbol of their ancient heritage, linking them to the earth and the heavens. Some locals believe that geoglyphs have spiritual powers and that they can influence the climate or crops, which only increases their mystery and sacredness. What do the thousands of lines and shapes carved on the Nazca Plateau really mean, and what was their true purpose for the ancient civilization that created them? How could these ancient masters create such colossal and precise images without being able to see them in their entirety? What other encrypted messages are stored in the deserts and unknown corners of the planet? And what can these silent symbols, visible only from a height, tell us about an ancient worldview, about man's connection to the cosmos, and how the deepest secrets can sometimes be written right under your feet, but remain invisible to those who look too closely? Underground cities and hidden shelters. Where did ancient civilizations hide? The surface of the earth holds many secrets, but no less of them are hidden under it. Underground cities, vast tunnel systems and cave settlements whisper about ancient peoples who, for unknown reasons, have gone deep into the planet. Were they forced to seek refuge from cataclysms, wars, or threats from outside? Or was their immersion in the earth part of some spiritual or mystical practice? These hidden shelters force us to rethink the capabilities of ancient builders and imagine worlds that existed in complete isolation, hidden from prying eyes. Derinkuyu, one of the largest and most impressive underground cities in Cappadocia, Turkey, is a prime example of this kind of structure. Discovered in 1963 by a local resident who accidentally found a hidden passage behind the wall of his house, Derinkuyu is a multi-level underground complex carved out of soft volcanic rock, tufa. It goes down to a depth of 85 meters and consists of 18 known levels that can accommodate up to 20,000 people, along with their livestock and food. The city was equipped with a complex system of ventilation shafts, wells, food warehouses, stables, wineries, schools, chapels, and even cemeteries. Huge stone doors, millstones, up to 3 meters in diameter and weighing up to 500 kili, could hermetically close the passages, protecting residents from external threats. Derinkuyu, like other underground cities of Cappadocia, for example, Kaimakli, was used by the inhabitants of the region for thousands of years, from the Phrygians in the 8th-7th centuries BC to Byzantine Christians fleeing from Arab and Mongol raids in the Middle Ages. Its construction required not only an incredible amount of labor, but also a deep knowledge of engineering and geology to ensure the stability of the structures and air circulation. It was a completely self-sufficient shelter, capable of supporting the lives of a huge number of people for a long time. The main mystery of Derinkuyu lies in the original reasons for its construction and the threat that forced the ancient people to go underground. Although underground cities were used by the Byzantines for protection from raids, their origins go back to much earlier times. What danger was so great that it required the creation of such grandiose and time-consuming shelters? Were these natural disasters, such as volcanic eruptions or earthquakes, tribal wars, or perhaps something more exotic that forced entire communities to live underground? It is not known exactly how long the construction of Derinkuyu took, and whether its creators had any specific technologies for such large-scale earthworks in soft rock. The lack of direct written evidence from the earliest builders about the reasons for the creation of these shelters leaves a huge gap in our understanding. Traditional scientific hypotheses about Derinkuyu connect its appearance with the need to protect against constant raids and military threats. Cappadocia's geographical position has made it vulnerable to invasions by various empires and nomadic tribes throughout history. The Phrygians could build the first levels to protect themselves from the Assyrians, and later the Hittites, Persians, Greeks, and Romans could also use or expand these shelters. For Byzantine Christians, these cities were a refuge from persecution by Arab and Seljuk invaders. Cappadocia's soft volcanic rock made it ideal for easy digging and construction, allowing you to quickly create vast underground spaces. Thus, Derinkuyu and similar cities are seen as a practical and logical solution for survival in turbulent times, and not as a reaction to some mystical threat. Unconventional and mystical versions of Derinkuyu include more intriguing assumptions. Some proponents of paleocontact argue that underground cities may have been built with the help of extraterrestrial civilizations or under their influence, as a refuge from space threats or nuclear conflicts that occurred in ancient times. There are theories that Derinkuyu was part of a vast underground network of tunnels connecting various ancient civilizations around the world, and that its purpose was not only defensive, but also communication or even esoteric. Some esotericists believe that these underground spaces were created to preserve secret knowledge or genetic material in the event of a global cataclysm, or that they were places for deep meditations and spiritual practices that allow people to disconnect from the outside world and connect with the internal energies of the earth. In the traditions and legends of Cappadocia, although there are no direct myths about Derinkuyu, there are stories of secret passages and underground realms. Locals often talk about jinns or spirits living in caves and hidden treasures. In Turkish folklore, there are legends about underground people, or peoples who lived underground, hiding from the world. For early Christians fleeing persecution, these underground cities became symbols of spiritual refuge and protection, a place where they could preserve their faith. These legends, intertwined with history, create an aura of mystery around Derinkuyu, turning it from a simple refuge into a place where reality intertwines with myth. What really made the ancient people go underground and build such colossal cities as Derinkuyu? What secrets did they keep in these hidden depths, and what knowledge might have been lost when their inhabitants eventually left these shelters? As we explore these subterranean worlds, can we understand the nature of the threats faced by the ancients and learn lessons for our own future? And what can these silent mazes set in stone tell us about survival, adaptation, and how humanity has sought refuge from its fears for centuries, leaving only dark but inviting passages leading to the unknown? Forgotten deities and unknown cults. Whispers of ancient faith. Religion has always been a central part of human civilization, shaping the worldview, culture, and social structures. But many ancient deities and their cults were forgotten, their names were forgotten, and their temples were destroyed. These forgotten deities whisper about worlds where the forces of nature and cosmic energies were perceived as living entities, where magic was part of everyday life and where humanity worshipped entities that we now know nothing about. Their disappearance is not just the loss of names, but the oblivion of entire belief systems that once defined the lives of millions of people. The bull cult, or Minoan religion, which existed on the island of Crete during the Minoan civilization period, approximately 2700–1450 BC, is one of the most mysterious and poorly understood ancient belief systems. Unlike other ancient religions, the Minoan religion did not have overt, majestic temples or large statues of the gods. Instead, its centers were mountaintop shrines, caves and home shrines, and palace complexes that may have also served as religious centers. The main symbol of the Minoan religion was the bull, which is believed to represent strength, fertility, and possibly heavenly powers. Images of bulls, bull horns, the so-called horns of consecration, and scenes of jumping over the bull, tauromaquia, are widely represented in Minoan art, on frescoes and seals. Female figures, often depicted with raised arms or holding snakes, also played an important role, suggesting the worship of the mother goddess or a series of goddesses of fertility and nature. The Minoans do not appear to have practiced large-scale human sacrifice, although there are disputed findings, and their rituals probably included dancing, chanting, and offering gifts. This religion was inextricably linked to nature, fertility, and the cycle of life, reflecting a peaceful and prosperous society that seemed to live in harmony with its surroundings. The main secret of the Minoan religion lies in its complete lack of deciphering. We do not know the names of Minoan deities except for a few possible theophoric names, nor do we understand their pantheon, mythology, rites, and sacred texts. The linear letter A, in which many religious texts were probably written, has not yet been deciphered, making the reconstruction of the Minoan faith extremely difficult. We can only guess at the meaning of symbols and scenes based on archaeological findings in comparison with other ancient cultures. The lack of explicit temples and a centralized priesthood also raises questions about its organization. Why did such an advanced civilization not leave us clear written evidence of their faith? And what is really hidden behind the symbolism of the bull and the goddesses that so dominate their art? Traditional scientific hypotheses about the Minoan religion are based on the interpretation of archaeological data. Scientists suggest that the central place in it was occupied by deities of fertility and nature, especially the mother goddess, who could have many aspects, such as the patroness of animals, the hearth or the harvest. The cult of the bull was probably associated with its strength and fertility, and possibly also with the celestial bull, the constellation of Taurus. Tauromaquia. It could be not just a sporting event, but an initiation ritual or a rite symbolizing overcoming the wilderness and connecting with divine forces. The absence of temples is explained by the fact that palaces could serve as cult centers, and rituals could be performed in the open air or in natural sanctuaries, which was typical for some early religions. The loss of knowledge about the Minoan religion is related to the disappearance of the civilization itself after the Santorini disaster and the Mycenaean invasion, as well as the lack of deciphering of its written language. Unconventional and mystical versions of the Minoan religion often go into the realm of esotericism and myths. Some suggest that the Minoans worshipped antediluvian deities or entities other than those known in Egypt or Mesopotamia, and that their belief was linked to lost knowledge of earth energy or cosmic cycles. There are theories that jumping over the bull was not just acrobatics, but a ritual that allows you to reach altered states of consciousness or communicate directly with spirits. Some esotericists associate the Minoan religion with Atlantean traditions, suggesting that they were the remnants of an ancient faith passed down from a highly developed but extinct civilization. Versions of sacrificial rituals hidden from view or connections to the underworld, as in the Minotaur myth, although this is a later Greek myth, also excite the imagination. In ancient Greek mythology, Crete is closely associated with the myths of the Minotaur, a creature with the head of a bull and the body of a man enclosed in a maze, King Minos and his daughter Ariadne. Although these myths were written well after the decline of Minoan civilization and contain Greek interpretations, they are probably echoes of Minoan beliefs, especially bull worship in elaborate palace structures. The legends of the labyrinth can be a metaphor for the complex plan of the palace of Knossos. In the modern folklore of Crete, there are still legends about bull spirits and about ancient places of power where mysterious rites were performed. These myths, even if distorted by time, are the only key to understanding how the ancient Greeks perceived their mysterious predecessors and their strange but powerful beliefs. What deities were worshipped by the Minoans, and what secrets are hidden in their unencrypted sacred texts? What was the true role of the bull in their religion, and what spiritual knowledge was associated with their rituals? Can we ever fully restore this forgotten belief system that shaped the life of an entire civilization? And what can these silent symbols and ruined shrines in Crete tell us about the nature of human faith, its changes and oblivion, and how even the most powerful gods can fade into oblivion if their secrets are forgotten? Unexplained artifacts, items that defy logic. Among the millions of archaeological finds, there are occasionally some that simply do not fit into the known picture of the world. These are unexplained artifacts, or items that seem too advanced, too unusual, or too mysterious for their era, as if they were created by non-human hands or brought from another time. They whisper about opportunities we can't fathom, technologies that have been lost, and mysteries that challenge our very understanding of history and human progress. The bells of Benin bronzes, while not anachronisms in the usual sense, are a different kind of mystery. How did the highly developed art and metallurgical technology of the Kingdom of Benin, present-day Nigeria, reach such a flourishing stage between the 13th and 19th centuries? These exquisite bronze, actually brass, heads, statuettes, plates, and other sculptures were created by Edo craftsmen using the most sophisticated Cire-Perdue technique Perdue. The quality and detail of these works of art is amazing. They depict rulers, both, their wives, warriors, courtiers, and deities with incredible realism and symbolism. Each job requires fine-grained precision and deep knowledge of metallurgy, including the ability to work with multi-component alloys. Moreover, to create such a large number of works, about 3,000, 4,000 artifacts, required a huge amount of metal and a well-developed labor organization. Benin's culture, which flourished independently of European influence for centuries, created a system of monumental art that amazed Europeans in the late 19th century when a British expedition sacked the kingdom, and still causes admiration and bewilderment. How did an African civilization, isolated from the major centers of the world's metallurgy, achieve such a level of mastery in such a complex technique, comparable to the best European Renaissance works, and even surpassing them in some aspects? The main secret of the Benin bronzes lies in the origin and development of their exceptional metallurgical technology. Investment casting techniques, especially on such a scale and with such quality, require deep knowledge of alloys, temperatures, molds, and casting processes. Where and how are the people of Edo got this knowledge? The lack of obvious previous stages of development of this technology in the region, as well as its sudden, seemingly flourishing, raises questions. Was this knowledge passed on from outside, perhaps from Egypt or other ancient civilizations via trade routes? Or was it the result of the independent and unique genius of local craftsmen whose secrets were lost after the fall of the kingdom? It is also mysterious how Benin was able to provide itself with such a huge amount of copper and tin to create brass, given that these metals were not mined in significant quantities in the territory of modern Benin. Traditional scientific hypotheses about Beninese bronzes point to an independent development of the local metallurgical tradition, which could have been refined over the centuries through trial and error. Craft skills may have been passed down within certain guilds or families that kept their secrets. It is believed that copper and tin came to Benin through trans-Saharan trade or through European traders, Portuguese, Dutch, in exchange for goods such as ivory, pepper, or slaves. The availability of raw materials allowed local craftsmen to hone their skills to incredible perfection. Stylistic analyses show the evolution of Beninese art rather than its sudden appearance, which confirms the version of gradual development. Bronzes were used to celebrate royalty, document history, and for ritual purposes, which stimulated their production and refinement. Unconventional and mystical versions of Beninese bronzes, although not as common as for other artifacts, sometimes touch on the topic of secret knowledge. Some suggest that the masters of Benin may have possessed esoteric knowledge or spiritual practices that allowed them to better understand the properties of metals and give their creations a special vitality or magical power. There are versions that ancient African cultures may have come into contact with some higher entities or spirits of nature who passed on knowledge about crafts to them. The most daring hypotheses sometimes link them to antediluvian civilizations, suggesting that some of the ancient technologies could have been preserved and transferred to Africa. These versions, although they have no scientific evidence, emphasize the uniqueness and exclusivity of these works of art, forcing us to look for explanations beyond the ordinary. In the folklore and myths of the Edo people, as well as in African traditions, there are legends about the divine patrons of crafts and the origin of the arts. For example, the blacksmith god Ogun in the Yoruba religion, related to Edo, is the patron saint of metallurgy and technology, and his skills are considered a gift from above. Legends tell of how the ancestors learned to work with metal from spirits or from ancient, wise beings. The oral traditions of Benin also contain detailed stories about each Oba, ruler, and the events depicted in bronze, which emphasizes the sacredness and historical significance of these artifacts. After the looting of Benin and the scattering of bronzes around the world, new legends have emerged about their spiritual power and that they call to return to their homeland, becoming a symbol of lost greatness and cultural heritage. How did the ancient craftsmen of Benin reach such an unprecedented level in die casting? And where did the knowledge and resources to create thousands of such artifacts come from? What secrets did they keep in their guilds? And why did this technology, so advanced, not become widespread in other parts of Africa? What other amazing but forgotten technologies might have existed in ancient cultures that we still don't know about? And what can these silent bronze faces that gaze out at us from museum windows tell us about the genius of the human spirit, about its ability to create, and that the deepest secrets can be encoded not only in written texts, but also in majestic works of art? Riddles of calendars and prophecies, whispers of the future from the past. Ancient civilizations seem to have a surprisingly deep understanding of time and its cycles, and even predicted future events with amazing accuracy. Their intricate calendars and cryptic prophecies whisper knowledge that goes beyond ordinary astronomical observation, hinting at a mystical connection to the future or a deep understanding of cosmic patterns that we still haven't grasped. These calendar riddles challenge our linear perception of time and make us think about the nature of fate and the ability to anticipate the future. The Mayan calendar, developed by the ancient Mayan civilization in Mesoamerica, is one of the most complex, accurate, and amazing calendar systems in human history. It consists of several interrelated cycles, the most famous of which are the Tzolk'in, sacred cycle of 260 days, the Hab, solar cycle of 365 days, similar to our calendar, and the Long Count, a system that counts days from the mythical start date corresponding to August 11, 3114 BC, according to the Gregorian calendar. The Maya used their own unique number system, based on 20, not 10 as we do, and understood the concept of zero. Their calendar was so accurate that it could predict solar and lunar eclipses, as well as planetary movements with incredible precision. For example, the length of the solar year in the Hab calendar was closer to the true one than in the European Julian calendar used at that time. The calendar was used not only to measure time, but also for religious, agricultural, and political purposes, determining favorable days for ceremonies, planting crops, or starting wars. He was not just a tool, but the embodiment of the Mayan cosmological ideas about the cyclicity of time and being, about the great epochs and their end. The main secret of the Mayan calendar lies in its incredible accuracy and deep understanding of astronomy, achieved without the use of modern optical instruments or mathematical tools, which are believed to have been available only much later. How did the Maya develop such a sophisticated system that tracked celestial events with less error than modern calendars? Where did they get their knowledge of the length of the solar year, the synodic periods of the planets, and the cyclical nature of eclipses? In addition, the prediction of the end of the Great Cycle of the Long Count, which occurred at the end of 2012, which gave rise to a lot of speculation about the end of the world or global transformation, is also mysterious. Although scientists explain that this is only the end of one cycle and the beginning of a new one, the very idea of such a large-scale countdown raises questions about the prophetic abilities of the Maya or their deep understanding of cosmic patterns. Traditional scientific hypotheses. The Mayan calendar is attributed to its accuracy by thousands of years of systematic astronomical observations. The Maya were careful observers of the sky, passing on their knowledge from generation to generation. They could use simple tools such as gnomons, vertical pillars for measuring shadows, and sighting lines on the horizon, as well as mathematical calculations based on their advanced number system. Their knowledge of zero and the positional system allowed them to perform complex astronomical calculations. The Mayan calendar is seen as the result of empirical data accumulation and the development of mathematical astronomy, not as a prophecy. The prediction of 2012 is interpreted as the end of one of the cycles of their long count, which for the Mayans simply meant the transition to a new era and not the apocalypse, which is the norm for cyclical calendars. Unconventional and mystical versions of the Mayan calendar often link it to the influence of extraterrestrial civilizations or secret knowledge. Some proponents of paleocontact suggest that the Mayans got their astronomical data and mathematical knowledge from aliens who came in contact with them. Other theories suggest that the Maya had lost the ability to see clearly or connect with cosmic consciousness, which allowed them to see future events and understand the deep cycles of time. There are versions that the calendar was not just a time counter, but an energy template or code that could influence reality or open portals to other dimensions, and that its end in 2012 meant a global shift of consciousness or the transition to a new era. These hypotheses, although they have no scientific evidence, emphasize the mystical aura around the calendar. Mayan myths and legends, as well as sacred texts such as the Popol Vuh, have a wide range of concepts about the cyclical nature of time, the creation and destruction of worlds. The Maya believed that the world was created and destroyed several times before coming to the current era, and each end was the beginning of a new cycle. The legends about the creator gods, who determined the order of things and gave people knowledge about time, also reflect their cosmology. In the folklore of modern Mayan Indians, the calendar still plays an important role in everyday life and rituals, and its cycles are perceived as living, influencing the fate of people in this world. Myths about prophets and sages who could read the signs in the heavens and understand the will of the gods also show a deep respect for astronomical knowledge and its sacred significance. What really lies behind the amazing accuracy of the Mayan calendar and its ability to predict celestial events? Were the Maya simply brilliant astronomers, or did their knowledge go beyond empirical observation? What other prophecies and hidden messages can be encrypted in their calendar systems? And what can this ancient calendar, with its cycles of creation and destruction, tell us about the nature of time, its cyclical nature, and that the future may not be as linear as we used to think, leaving us with the eternal mystery of foresight and endless cycles of being? Lost cosmologies and ancient visions of the world. How our ancestors imagined the universe. Each civilization had its own unique picture of the world, its own cosmology, a system of ideas about the origin of the universe, its structure, the place of man in it, and interaction with divine forces. Many of these ancient cosmologies have been forgotten or distorted by time, but their echoes can still be found in myths, symbols, and archaeological finds. These lost visions of the world whisper about how our ancestors tried to comprehend the infinite, about their attempts to explain the incomprehensible, and that the universe may have been a much more alive and meaningful place for them than for us. The cosmology of ancient Egypt is one of the most complex, profound, and sometimes contradictory systems of ideas about the universe that has developed over thousands of years. The Egyptians believed that in the beginning there was none, the limitless, primeval watery chaos from which emerged Adam, or Ra, the first self-created deity, emerged. Adam gave birth to Shu, air, and Tefnut, moisture, which in turn became the parents of Geb, earth, and Nut, sky. Nut and Geb were separated by Shu to create a living space. The underworld, the Duat, was the place where the sun went after sunset and where the souls of the dead were tested. The Egyptians imagined the earth as a flat disk surrounded by an ocean, over which stretched the celestial body Nut, often depicted as a woman bent over the world. The sun, Ra, traveled daily across the sky in his barge, and at night passed through the Duat to be reborn in the east. This cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth was central to their cosmology. Stars, in their view, were the souls of the dead or gods, and constellations played an important role in their calendar and astronomy. Egyptian cosmology was not just a collection of myths. It was the foundation of their religion, art, architecture, and even government. It explained the order of the world, Mat, the need for cyclical renewal, and the importance of rituals for maintaining cosmic balance. All their grandiose structures, from pyramids to temples, were built in accordance with their ideas of heaven and the afterlife, which makes their cosmology one of the most visually expressed. The main secret of Egyptian cosmology lies in its multiplicity and sometimes apparent contradictions. In different cities and epochs, there were different versions of the creation myths and the pantheon of gods. For example, the Heliopolis, Memphis, and Hermopolis cosmogonies. How did the Egyptians reconcile these differences? Was there a single all-encompassing secret doctrine available only to the chosen priests? Or did they simply accept the existence of several truths simultaneously? In addition, the depth of their astronomical knowledge is also mysterious. For example, some researchers suggest that the Egyptians knew about the precession of the equinoxes long before the Greeks, which required thousands of years of observation. If so, where did this knowledge come from, and how was it passed on? These questions challenge our understanding of their scientific prowess. Traditional scientific hypotheses explain the features of Egyptian cosmology as a result of the gradual development and merging of local cults and beliefs. Different centers, such as Heliopolis, Memphis, or Thebes, had their own religious schools that developed their own versions of cosmogony. Over time, these versions may have coexisted, been synthesized, or competed with each other. Priests probably had a deeper and more systematic understanding of these concepts than ordinary people. The astronomical knowledge of the Egyptians was the result of thousands of years of careful observation of the celestial bodies, which was necessary for the compilation of the calendar, especially for predicting the floods of the Nile, and for religious rituals. Written sources such as pyramid texts, sarcophagus texts, and the Book of the Dead provide an extensive, if fragmentary, view of their cosmological views, which were generally metaphorical and symbolic, rather than strictly scientific in the modern sense. Unconventional and mystical versions of Egyptian cosmology often fall into the realm of esotericism and speculation. Some claim that the Egyptians had secret knowledge obtained from the Atlanteans or extraterrestrial civilizations. This knowledge, in their opinion, allowed them not only to build grandiose structures, but also to understand the principles of cosmic energy embodied in their pyramids and temples, which could serve as energy generators or portals. There are theories that the Egyptians knew about the multidimensionality of the universe and about parallel worlds, which explains their complex concept of the Duat. Some esotericists associate Egyptian deities not just with mythological figures, but with archetypal energies or planetary entities that they could communicate with through rituals. Versions of the Stargate, or hidden knowledge about the nature of consciousness, encoded in hieroglyphs, also excite minds. In Egyptian folklore and myths written on temple walls and papyri, cosmology permeates every part of their lives. The myths of Ra on his daily journey, of Osiris, the lord of the afterlife, and of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and order, were part of every Egyptian's daily life. Festivals and rituals were closely linked to the cycles of nature and the movement of the heavenly bodies, reflecting their belief in harmony and cyclicity. For them, the entire world was alive, and every element, from stone to star, had its own divine purpose. These myths and rituals were not just stories, but instructions for life, in preparation for the afterlife, ensuring continuity of existence for both the living and the dead, and reflecting a deep reverence for the greatness of the cosmos. What is really hidden behind the complex, sometimes contradictory, but surprisingly deep cosmology of ancient Egypt? What secret knowledge could they have held about the universe that still eludes us? How could they have achieved such a level of astronomical understanding without modern instruments? And could they really have known about the precession of the equinoxes? And what can these lost visions of the world etched in stone and papyrus tell us about the human quest to comprehend infinity, its place in the cosmos, and how the deepest truths can be encoded in symbols waiting to be redefined? Mysterious healings and unexplained illnesses, medicine of the ancients. Ancient civilizations, without modern scientific knowledge, nevertheless sometimes demonstrated amazing healing abilities, and also faced diseases whose origin and nature remain a mystery. These unexplained cures and mysterious ailments whisper about medical practices that went beyond ordinary empiricism, hinting at the use of lost knowledge, mystical powers, or even the intervention of higher entities. They challenge our understanding of ancient medicine and make us think about the connection between body, spirit, and environment, which may have been deeper than we now realize. Ancient Egyptian medicine is one of the oldest, most developed, and at the same time, mysterious medical systems of the ancient world. Despite the lack of modern scientific methods, the Egyptians have achieved remarkable success in surgery, pharmacology, and diagnostics. This is evidenced by such sources as Papyrus the Ebers, Papyrus Okisiwer 1550 BC, and the Edwin Smith Papyrus, Okisiwer's 1600 BC, which contain thousands of medical prescriptions, descriptions of procedures, and anatomical observations. Egyptian doctors were able to perform complex operations, including cranial trepanation, suturing, treating fractures, and using various herbs and minerals as medicines. They were specialized, for example, there were separate doctors for the eyes, teeth, or internal organs, which indicates a high level of organization of medicine. However, along with rational methods, Egyptian medicine was closely intertwined with magic, religion, and the belief in divine intervention. Diseases were often seen as the result of the wrath of the gods, curses, or the invasion of evil spirits. Therefore, treatment often included prayers, spells, amulets, and rituals. The art of mummification, which required a deep knowledge of anatomy and tissue preservation, is also a testament to their understanding of the human body, albeit in the context of preparing for the afterlife. Egyptian medicine, with its unique combination of practical knowledge and mystical beliefs, presents a fascinating puzzle. How did they achieve such results without our understanding of microorganisms or sterility? And what secrets of their healing are still beyond our comprehension? The main mystery of ancient Egyptian medicine lies in the inexplicable success in some areas, especially in surgery, in the absence of modern knowledge about hygiene, antibiotics, and painkillers. How did they manage to carry out complex operations, avoiding the infections that were the scourge of subsequent eras? They may have used some natural antiseptics or sterilization methods that we don't know about. What is also mysterious is how they could accurately diagnose certain diseases that we can only identify with sophisticated laboratory tests. Was it the result of intuition, deep empirical experience, or the use of some lost knowledge? It also remains unclear how effective their magical and religious methods were. Were they just a psychological placebo, or did they have some real but not scientific power? Traditional scientific hypotheses about ancient Egyptian medicine emphasize the empirical nature of their knowledge. The Egyptians have been observing, experimenting, and recording the results of their actions for thousands of years. The vast experience gained during the mummification process gave them unprecedented knowledge about the human body and its organs. The use of natural remedies, honey, myrrh, garlic, with known antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties, could help prevent infections. Operations were most likely performed on the superficial injuries, and the mortality rate was high, but successful cases were recorded. Magical and religious rituals are seen as psychological support for patients and doctors, as well as a way to explain the unknown and calm fear. Medical papyri, despite their seemingly strange recipes, show a rational approach to symptoms and their treatment, albeit in the context of ancient beliefs. Unconventional and mystical versions of ancient Egyptian medicine often suggest the presence of hidden knowledge or unearthly intervention. Some claim that Egyptian medical priests had access to secret knowledge about human energy fields or the healing properties of crystals and other minerals that we still don't understand. There are theories that the Egyptians may have used some kind of energy healing or mental influence on diseases, which explains some of the unexplained healings. Some proponents of paleocontact suggest that medical knowledge may have been passed on to the Egyptians by extraterrestrial civilizations, who left them instructions on how to treat and understand the body. Versions of magic rituals that invoke divine powers for healing, or portals to other dimensions through which information about diseases could be obtained, also exist. In ancient Egyptian folklore and myths, gods played a central role in healing and disease. Sekhmet, the goddess of war and healing, could both send the plague and heal from it. Thoth, the god of wisdom and magic, was considered the patron saint of doctors. Isis, who had magical powers, could heal and resurrect. Legends of miraculous cures and curses that caused illnesses were common. Egyptian texts often mention words of power and protective amulets that were supposed to ward off diseases and evil spirits. For the Egyptians, medicine was inextricably linked to the spiritual world, and the disease was perceived as a violation of the cosmic order. These myths reflect a deep belief that health depends not only on the physical condition, but also on harmony with the divine and spiritual world. How did the ancient Egyptians achieve such success in medicine, and what secrets of their healing still elude us? Could they have used some lost methods that are beyond our current understanding? What are the secrets of diseases and healing kept by their mummies and papyri, waiting to be deciphered? And what can this ancient medicine, with its amazing combination of science and magic, tell us about the fragility of the human body, its connection with the spirit, and the eternal search for healing in a world full of unsolved ailments and miraculous recoveries? Mysterious beasts and unknown creatures. The ancient bestiary. Myths and legends of ancient peoples are full of stories about fantastic beasts, mythical monsters, and creatures that, it would seem, could not exist in reality. From dragons to griffins, unicorns to sea monsters, these creatures inhabited the ancient world, scaring and inspiring humanity. However, sometimes among these fictional creatures, there are references to mysterious animals that could be not just a figment of the imagination, but a reflection of real life, but now extinct species, or even creatures hiding from our view. These forgotten species whisper about the unknown corners of the planet, about the possibility of the existence of cryptids, and that the world of the past was much more diverse and wild than we can imagine. Sea snakes is a term that encompasses many legends and sightings of giant, snake-like, or plesiosaur-like creatures found in oceans, lakes, and rivers around the world. These stories are found in folklore from the ancient Norse sagas of Jormungandr, the giant sea serpent, to the legends of the Native American tribes of North America about Ogopogo or Scottish Nessie. Although it is lake-like, its image is often associated with sea snakes. Evidence of sea snakes has appeared throughout history. Sailors described encounters with huge reptiles whose bodies reach tens of meters in length, with necks like snakes, and sometimes with fins or crests. These creatures, often described as elongated, with numerous humps or fins, do not fit into the species known to science. Despite hundreds, if not thousands, of alleged sightings, including statements from ship captains and even photographs, although many of them are either fuzzy or turned out to be fakes, there is no conclusive scientific evidence for the existence of these animals. Most zoologists attribute such observations to incorrect identification of known animals, whales, sharks, great eels, seals in specific conditions, or optical illusions. Nevertheless, the abundance and persistence of these legends and eyewitnesses continue to excite minds and fuel hopes for the discovery of unknown, prehistoric species that may have survived in deep, uncharted ocean depressions. The main mystery of sea snakes lies in the contradiction between ubiquitous, long-standing eyewitness accounts and the complete lack of indisputable scientific evidence. If these creatures really exist, why haven't any of them been captured, their bodies found, or at least obtained clear photographs or videos that can withstand scientific examination? Why are they so successful at avoiding detection in such large numbers? This discrepancy begs the question, is all this evidence the fruit of a collective delusion? Or are we talking about extremely rare, elusive animals that can adapt to the deepest and most inaccessible parts of the ocean, where their chances of contact with humans are minimal? Or maybe we are dealing with an extinct species whose last representatives were seen only by chance. Traditional scientific hypotheses about sea snakes explain them as misconceptions or misidentifications. For example, a large flock of whales moving in a single line may look like one long creature. Large eels, squid, or sharks could also be mistaken for sea snakes. Decomposing corpses of large animals, such as whales or sharks, sometimes take on strange shapes that may resemble unknown creatures. Atmospheric conditions such as mirages or fog can also distort visibility on the water, creating the illusion of giant creatures. In addition, many of the proofs turned out to be deliberate forgeries or hoaxes. The scientific community requires physical evidence, body DNA, before recognizing the existence of a new species, and so far there is no such evidence for sea snakes. Unconventional and mystical versions of sea snakes often include more dramatic explanations. Many cryptozoologists believe that sea snakes are surviving dinosaurs, or plesiosaurs, that miraculously survived the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event and adapted to deep-sea life. They suggest that the oceans are so vast and poorly understood that they may well hide such giant animals. Some theories suggest that sea snakes may be giant, unknown species of eels or invertebrates that reach colossal sizes in the depths. There are also mystical versions that suggest that these creatures may have a non-physical nature or belong to other dimensions, appearing and disappearing at will, which explains their elusiveness. For some, sea snakes are part of a hidden world that exists parallel to our own, but remains invisible to most. Sea snakes, dragons, and giant monsters play a huge role in world folklore and myths. In Norse mythology, this is Jormungandr, the world serpent that encircles the earth. In Greek mythology, this is a hydra or Scylla. The Leviathan is mentioned in the Bible text Leviathan and a hippo. In Japanese mythology, Ryujin, the dragon god of the sea. These creatures are often associated with chaos, natural disasters, and forces beyond the control of humans. In the folklore of coastal peoples, there are countless legends about local sea monsters that guard the waters, sink ships, or bring good luck. These myths probably originated as an attempt to explain unexplained phenomena in the ocean. Giant waves, underwater currents, strange creatures, and symbolize human fear and awe of the vast and mysterious power of the sea. Are there really giant snake-like creatures lurking in the depths of the oceans that evade our detection? Or are they just a figment of the collective imagination and misinterpretations? What other unknown species can exist in unknown corners of our planet, waiting to be discovered? And what can these countless legends about sea monsters tell us about ancient fears, about the human quest to classify and understand the wild world, and that even in the age of science, our planet still holds many biological secrets waiting in the wings? Unknown. Energies and paranormal phenomena. The veil between worlds. Along with material mysteries, the story is full of references to unknown energies and paranormal phenomena, events that challenge the laws of physics and our rational understanding of the world. From poltergeists to spontaneous combustion, from levitation to inexplicable movements of objects, these phenomena whisper about the existence of dimensions or forces that we cannot comprehend. They make us think about the nature of reality, the limits of human consciousness, and the fact that the veil between our world and others may be much thinner than we think. Marfa lights are unexplained. Will-O, the wisps that have been regularly observed near the city of Marfa, Texas, USA, for more than 140 years. The first documented sighting dates back to 1883, when a local cowboy described twinkling lights appearing on the horizon. Since then, thousands of people, including scientists, military personnel, and ordinary tourists, have reported seeing these mysterious lights. The lights usually appear at dusk or at night on the horizon southwest of Marfa in the Chincoteague Plain area and are visible from a certain viewing platform on Highway 90. They are described in various ways, from single pulsating lights to a group of fast-moving lights that change color, red, blue, white, yellow, size, and brightness. Sometimes they appear static, and sometimes they perform complex maneuvers, speeding up, slowing down, disappearing, and reappearing. They make no sound and have no visible source. Despite numerous studies and attempts to explain their nature, the lights of Marfa remain one of the most persistent and unexplained paranormal mysteries. They challenge traditional explanations because they have nothing to do with car lights, which are visible from the road in the area, aircraft lights, human settlements lights, or campfires as they appear where there are no roads or settlements. It's not just an optical illusion, it's a phenomenon that continues to intrigue and frighten, leaving people facing an inexplicable glow that appears out of nowhere and disappears without a trace, as if it belongs to another world. The main mystery of the Marfa lights is the lack of a consistent and scientifically proven explanation for their origin. If this is something natural, then why do they manifest themselves so selectively and have no analogs in other places of the world? If this is a human activity, what is it? And why is it so secretive? The phenomenon cannot be replicated under controlled conditions, and its behavior often contradicts the known laws of physics, especially with respect to their motion and the absence of a visible source of heat or energy. The inability to uniquely identify them as a known object or phenomenon creates a deep mystery, making us question our full understanding of natural processes or even reality as such. Traditional scientific hypotheses about the fires of Marfa try to find a natural explanation. The most common theory is atmospheric mirages or refraction of light. It is believed that temperature inversions in desert areas can refract light from distant sources, for example, car headlights on very long roads or lights from settlements over the horizon, creating moving and changing light spots. Other versions include piezoelectric phenomena, glow caused by rock friction, swamp gases, methane, which ignites spontaneously even though there are no swamps in the area, or glowing animals, which is unlikely for this scale. However, none of these theories can fully explain all the observed characteristics of lights, especially their complex movement and independent behavior that distinguishes them from ordinary mirages or headlights. Unconventional and mystical versions of the lights of Marfa are much more diverse and intriguing. The most popular one is UFOs, or alien ships. Proponents of this theory claim that the lights are a manifestation of the activity of extraterrestrial civilizations that explore the Earth's atmosphere. Others suggest that they are ghosts or spirits of dead people, such as Indians or cowboys, who wander the plains. There are theories that the lights are a manifestation of Earth energy, or ley lines, that intersect in the area, and that they are a kind of energy bursts or portals to other dimensions. Some esotericists associate them with intelligent light, or elementals, beings composed of pure energy that manifest in our world. These hypotheses, although they have no scientific evidence, emphasize the mystical aura around the phenomenon and its inexplicable nature. In the folklore and local traditions of the Marfa region, the lights of Marfa occupy a special place. They are often associated with earth spirits or magical lights that were present here long before the arrival of settlers. Native American legends of dancing lights or spirit lights are also found. Nowadays, the lights of Marfa have become a kind of tourist attraction, attracting thousands of people who hope to see this mysterious phenomenon. Their constancy and inexplicability have made them part of the local identity, a symbol of the incomprehensible and amazing that exists at the border of our understanding of the world, continuing to excite the imagination and make people come back again and again in the hope of solving their age-old mystery. What exactly are the lights of Marfa, and why do they continue to appear, defying all scientific explanations? What unknown forces or energies are at work in the area, manifesting in the form of these wandering lights? Can they be the key to understanding the nature of consciousness, parallel dimensions, or even contact with the unearthly? And what can these mysterious lights dancing in the desert under the cover of night tell us about the limits of knowledge, about the eternal search for the inexplicable, and that the world is perhaps much more complex and mysterious than we can ever understand, keeping our deepest secrets in a flickering, silent light? Forgotten languages and unencrypted scripts, voices from the past. Language is not just a means of communication, it is the key to the thinking, culture, and worldview of a civilization. When a language or written language is lost and unencrypted, it becomes one of the greatest barriers to understanding the past. These forgotten languages whisper about peoples whose voices have been silenced forever, about knowledge that has been encrypted and left inaccessible. They challenge linguists, archaeologists, and cryptographers to uncover the secrets hidden in ancient symbols and bring forgotten worlds back to life. Rongorongo is a mysterious and still undeciphered script found on Easter Island, Rapa Nui, in the Pacific Ocean. It consists of a series of stylized pictographs and glyphs carved on wooden tablets, staffs, and other objects. The name Rongorongo, in the Rapa Nui language, Rapa Nui means talking tablets. When Europeans first arrived on the island in the 18th century, the natives used this script, but by the time it was discovered for science in the mid-19th century, after the raids of Peruvian slave traders, most of the native speakers and experts in reading it were killed or enslaved. There are only about 2.5 dozen known artifacts with Rongorongo inscription preserved in museums around the world. The writing system is a boustrophodon. That is, reading is carried out alternately from left to right and from right to left. And when switching to a new line, the sign needs to be turned over. Glyphs represent images of people, animals, plants, and abstract symbols. Despite numerous attempts to decipher it, no linguist or cryptographer has yet been able to decipher Rongorongo convincingly. It is not known whether this letter is a syllabic, ideographic, or pictographic system, and it is unclear whether it contains the island's history, religious texts, legends, or something completely different. The unique and isolated development of this script on a remote island makes it one of the most intriguing unsolved linguistic mysteries in the world, whispering about the lost knowledge and secrets of the ancient Rapa Nui civilization. The main secret of Rongorongo is the complete absence of a decryption key. Most of the native speakers and connoisseurs of writing died before Europeans realized its value, which led to the loss of oral tradition, which could help in understanding. The lack of bilingual texts, such as Rongorongo in a known language, also makes decryption extremely difficult. It is not even clear whether Rongorongo is a full-fledged writing system capable of transmitting complex information, or whether it is just mnemonic signs or pictograms. And if this is a full-fledged written language, then what was it supposed to pass on to future generations? And why was it created on such an isolated island? Traditional scientific hypotheses about Rongorongo suggest that it is either a purely mnemonic system, auxiliary signs for memorizing oral texts, or partially logographic, syllabic writing, which may have been at an early stage of development. The lack of a large number of texts and experts makes it difficult to use traditional decryption methods, such as frequency analysis. Some researchers suggest that Rongorongo may have been an independent invention of the Easter Islanders, inspired perhaps by the idea of writing that they saw from the Spaniards in the 16th century, but developed according to its own rules. Others believe that it had more ancient roots in Polynesia, but was transformed on the island. Despite their best efforts, most attempts to decipher it have been inconclusive, and the writing remains a mystery. Unconventional and mystical versions of Rongorongo often attribute a much deeper and more mysterious meaning to it. Some claim that Rongorongo contains messages from extraterrestrial civilizations or secret knowledge passed down to the Rapa Nui by ancestors from other planets. There are theories that this is an energy letter that activates when read correctly, opening up access to ancient wisdom or even other dimensions. Some esotericists associate Rongorongo with Atlantean traditions, suggesting that it is the remnants of an ancient universal language that existed before the global cataclysm. Versions that the written language contains prophecies about the future or the history of the vanished Mu civilization also excite minds. These hypotheses, while lacking scientific evidence, highlight the mystical aura surrounding Rongorongo. In the folklore and myths of Easter Island, Rongorongo is surrounded by an aura of sacredness. Legends say that writing was brought to the island by the first Hotu chief Matua, or his sons, and that it was associated with secret knowledge and divine power. It was believed that only selected priests and leaders could read and understand these texts, which were used in rituals and to preserve history. Local legends also mention talking stones, and that words have a special power, which may be due to the belief in the magic of writing. For modern Rapa Nui people, Rongorongo is a symbol of their lost heritage and a hope for reviving ancient knowledge that could help them understand their own history and connection to their ancestors. What is actually encoded in the mysterious Rongorongo symbols? And what voice from the past are they trying to convey to us? What are the secrets of the ancient Rapa Nui civilization? Could they have been lost along with the loss of this writing system? Can these talking tablets ever speak again, opening up uncharted pages of history? And what can this unencrypted language, which holds its secrets at the end of the world, tell us about the fragility of knowledge, about the power of oblivion, and about the eternal quest of humanity to understand the messages left by those who came before us but whose voices are silenced forever? Lost technology and lost knowledge gifts from the past. Sometimes history presents us with riddles in the form of lost technologies, inventions and methods that, it would seem, were significantly ahead of their time and then were forgotten. These findings challenge our linear understanding of progress, making us wonder whether ancient civilizations possessed knowledge that we are only now beginning to rediscover, or whether these technologies were the result of some external influence that then disappeared. These gifts from the past whisper of opportunities that have been lost, of genius ahead of the ages, and of secrets that still await their full disclosure. Damascus steel is a legendary material whose blades were famous for their incredible sharpness, strength, flexibility, and characteristic wavy pattern, reminiscent of flowing water or wood. This steel was produced in the Middle East, mainly in the area of Damascus, from about 900 AD to the middle of the 16th century. Weapons and armor made of Damascus steel were highly valued around the world, and their quality was superior to European counterparts of that time. The secret of Damascus steel was the use of wutsa, a special type of crucible steel produced in India and Sri Lanka, which contained high carbon concentrations, 1.0–2.0%. This steel, after repeated forging, and special heat treatment at relatively low temperatures, acquired a unique microstructure, nanotubes and nanofibers made of cementite, which provided its exceptional properties. It is this nanostructure, which was discovered by modern scientists only with the help of an electron microscope, that made Damascus steel so outstanding. The art of making Damascus steel was completely lost by the middle of the 17th century. The last masters died without passing on their secrets, and the import of wood stopped, possibly due to changes in trade routes or depletion of deposits. Attempts to recreate Damascus steel in Europe were unsuccessful, despite extensive experiments. This loss of technology has become one of the greatest mysteries in the history of metallurgy, challenging our understanding of how the ancients could have achieved such a level of skill without a modern scientific understanding of material science. The main secret of Damascus steel is the loss of the exact process of its production. Although the main component is a higher education institution, it is known that the methods of its processing, forging, as well as the specific stages of heat treatment that led to the formation of a unique nanostructure were lost. Why didn't the masters document their knowledge? Was this the result of deliberate concealment of secrets within guilds to maintain a monopoly? Or was knowledge passed down exclusively orally, making them vulnerable to extinction? In addition, it is also mysterious how ancient craftsmen, who had no knowledge of nanotechnology, could intuitively or empirically achieve such a level of control over the material at the microscopic level. Traditional scientific hypotheses about Damascus steel focus on metallurgical aspects. It is believed that the masters, through trial and error, have developed the optimal conditions for processing wutsa. An important role was played by the composition of impurities in the matrix, for example vanadium, which contributed to the formation of nanotubes. The forging process at relatively low temperatures prevented the destruction of these structures. Heat treatment, slow cooling, quenching, and tempering, played a key role in the formation of cementite fibers. The loss of technology is explained by the cessation of the supply of high-quality VUC, which was unique in its composition, and the secrecy of the process, which was transmitted only to selected students. In the end, changing economic and political conditions, as well as the emergence of new methods of steel production in Europe, made the restoration of Damascus steel less of a priority. Unconventional and mystical versions of Damascus steel sometimes include more exotic explanations. Some suggest that the secret of its manufacture was associated with alchemical knowledge or mystical rituals that could give the metal special properties. There are theories that the masters may have used secret supplements which we still can't identify. Esotericists sometimes associate Damascus steel with energy properties and the ability to accumulate power in the blade. Theories that knowledge was obtained from extraterrestrial civilizations or from ancient, highly advanced civilizations such as Atlantis also sometimes appear, trying to explain the inexplicable level of technology. In Arabic and Persian folklore, Damascus blades are surrounded by many legends. They were attributed to supernatural sharpness, the ability to cut silk in the air or cut stones, as well as magical properties, bring good luck to the owner, drive away evil spirits. Legends tell of great master blacksmiths who could talk to metal and knew its secrets. In medieval lore, Damascus steel is often referred to as devil's iron because of its incredible strength. These myths reflect a deep admiration for this material and its mysterious nature, which seem beyond human comprehension. What really caused the loss of the secret of Damascus steel? And is it possible to completely recreate this ancient technology that surpasses its time? What other lost technologies might be hidden in history, waiting to be rediscovered? And what can these legendary blades, with their magical patterns and unfathomable properties, tell us about the genius of the human spirit, about the fragility of knowledge, and that the deepest secrets can be encrypted not only in ancient texts, but also in matter itself, waiting in the wings? Our journey through the depths of the unknown is coming to an end, but only to bring us to the realization that the world around us is full of secrets that will never run out. We touched on artifacts that defy logic, structures that were ahead of their time, legends about forgotten civilizations, and phenomena that defy the laws of physics. Each solved secret only opens the door to new questions, confirming that human knowledge is an endless journey. Ancient civilizations have left us not just ruins and scrolls, but also echoes of their deep knowledge. From underground cities like Derinkuyu whispering about survival, to forgotten deities of the Minoan civilization reminding us of lost beliefs, and unexplained technologies like Damascus steel forcing us to rethink the level of development of ancient masters. Nature itself is the greatest keeper of secrets. From the inexplicable glow of the Marfa lights to the mysterious depths of Lake Baikal, with its UFOs, it constantly demonstrates to us that its capabilities are beyond our current understanding. Disasters like the hypothetical Thule remind us of the fragility of civilization, and forgotten epidemics like the Pottinger Plague remind us of the unpredictability of diseases. Language and knowledge also keep their secrets. Unencrypted scripts like Rongorongo, the silent voices of long-gone peoples, and controversial texts like Papyrus, the Thule Papyrus, challenge our perception of history. Finally, the prophecies of Nostradamus and the universal myths of the world before the flood constantly remind us of our eternal quest to understand time. In the end, all these riddles are not just a collection of curiosities. This is an invitation to reflection on the limits of our knowledge, on the cycles of history, and on the power of the human spirit. Each unsolved mystery is not a defeat, but an opportunity for a new discovery. The eternal whisper of these mysteries is the voice of the universe itself, calling us to constant wonder and endless knowledge.